I hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, July 6th, 2026. Mr. City Manager, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Shorter.
Here.
Bauer.
Here.
Councilmember Groff.
Here.
Councilmember Strawn.
Here.
Mayor Rowe.
Here. And with us at the dais, by way of introduction, we have our City Attorney Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the far end of the dais, and our City Manager Pat Trudgeon, who's on my left at the other end of the dais. We have staff who will be presenting items as those agenda items come up. We'll make sure to make those introductions, and I hope I get them right. And want to also note that we do have a complete set of all the meeting materials that are before us this evening in a 3-ring binder on the table in the back by the back door under the big clock. That's available for anyone in the public to share access to over the course of the meeting. And then we also do have individual copies of the agenda available for you to follow along if you'd like to, also in the same location. So feel free to grab one of those if you need that to help you follow along with the meeting. We would remind you to either silence your cell phone or otherwise assure that it doesn't disrupt the meeting this evening. And with that, we'll ask folks to stand, if you're able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next on our agenda is approval of tonight's agenda, and I'll check as always first with staff and Mr. Trudgeon. Are there any changes that need to be made to the agenda from a staff perspective?
No changes to staff.
All right, and check with the council. Are there any changes that the council would like to make to the agenda this evening? We have a fairly brief agenda, so not too many opportunities. Are there any changes? All right, seeing none. Normally, I would check with folks to see if there is anyone here for one of the items in our consent agenda, section 10, at the end of our agenda. There are only 2 items on that section right now, which is approval of our payments and then a consideration of a standby contract for EMS services for a Parkinson's walk. If anyone is here for either one of those items, this would be the time to let us know, and we can pull that item forward in the meeting so that you can either speak to or ask questions about either of those items. It's totally your choice as a member of the public. If you're not here for either of those items, we can leave them where they are. But I do always want to check at the beginning of the meeting if anyone is here for one of those items, once again in section 10 of our agenda, under consent agenda, the approval of payments or the EMS contract for the Parkinson's walk. Does not appear that anyone is here for one of those items. So I think a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. That passes unanimously. The agenda is approved. That brings us then to our first opportunity for public comment this evening. I will note that by council rule, we do always provide opportunity for public comment on agenda items as they come forward, but we also do want to provide at the start of each meeting an opportunity for members of the public to speak to items that are not on this evening's agenda, but may either be related to city business or of interest to people in the community. We do ask that you start your comments with your name and your street or address. Direct comments or questions to the council, we may not be able to provide an instantaneous answer. We may have to do some follow-up, but we're certainly willing to do that. And then also we have a 3-minute time limit per speaker. With that, we'll recognize our first public comment speaker this evening. Welcome.
Roger Hess Jr. I live on Wagner Place, so I recently moved one house north. And
Duly noted.
and sometimes I stay at my nephew's house, which is also a block away in Roseville. So
Also noted.
anyway, I have 2 things that I would like you to consider discussing in the future. The first one is I see that the police department is changing the design on the sides of the squad cars. And I really don't like it. I like the nice, big, clean Roseville on the side that you could identify the cars from quite a ways away that it's a Roseville car. And I thought it had a really clean, nice-looking design, whereas now you got this really big badge with a little tiny Roseville underneath it, which it makes it very difficult to know it's a Roseville car from a ways away. Plus the big blob that's on the side really draws your attention to that rather than the word Roseville. I think you should sometime take a look at both side by side and see if maybe you should stop this change and go back to the original really nice clean looking big Roseville. And then secondly, I understand, it looked like, according to the city website, that the Hamlin Avenue project, you knew at least by June 24th it wasn't going to happen, because that's when you posted something on the website. But it took like 9 days to open up the side streets. I don't know why it took so long. But I think you should look at your policy about when you close side streets on road projects, because it's very inconvenient to have it closed for weeks when there's no work actually going on. Like say you're traveling east on C2 and you come to Hamlin and it's closed, but there's no work going on anywhere near there. So it doesn't make sense to close C2 because they aren't doing any work there. So you should really have some policy about when a side street is closed, how close work has to be to that, rather than closing this big, huge, long road for no reason. Just like you closed all 3 entrances to the church at C and Hamlin, which I saw no reason why that was closed. There was nothing going on there for work. So anyway, I think you should talk about when side streets are closed and, before any work gets there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here for general public comment this evening? Hello and welcome, and you may have to grab a third chair, it looks like.
Look, you guys, one back. I'm in charge.
I'm glad someone is.
It's always good.
Hello and welcome.
Good evening. First off, we're representatives from the Juneteenth committee, and we'd like to thank the city for the donations that they made and the help that you gave us. I mean, we had a really good Juneteenth this year. I think we had over 500 people that showed up. Without your support, this would not have been able to be done. I also like to thank you, Councilman Groff, and you, Mayor Rowe, for showing up, for you opening us up. And Wayne, thank you so much for coming to my table and shaking my hand. We also like to thank all the departments that helped us. Like I said before, without your help, it would have been an impossible thing to do. This was our 8th year, and it just ran smooth, and it was great. And hopefully, we'll see all of you next year.
All right.
Yeah, Etienne Jevi, part of the planning committee, really wanted to express our gratitude for the support from the city over the years. Building one community where everyone feels welcome and feel one community is the goal of this committee, and over the year we have been getting there. Again, good to see the mayor there, always being part of the welcoming team, and we really appreciate that. Commissioner. Councilmember Groff, thank you for being there. It was so good to see that the community is coming together around one aspect of Blackness that we are all proud to celebrate. So thank you all. Thank you for the city, to the police department. It was good to see, for example, the police department being there with kids of color, playing with the police, community policing, an aspect of one thing we're hoping to achieve.
CSS, do not touch the mic. So I wouldn't.
No, you're fine.
So, good afternoon. My name is Keith Allen, resident of Roseville and also a member of this committee. And as you heard from my fellow committee members and brothers, that we are very excited on how Juneteenth went this year and the partnership that we have here with the city. I've lived here for 8 years, and I've come from a Rondo community that was established by a Black community in St. Paul, and it was always a great thing to have community and always know that I can go somewhere and be seen and see something that reminds me of me and feeling safe. And this year was one of those years where other cities are now asking, how do you all do that here in Roseville? And it's great to be known, one of the best parks in the city, but also one of the greatest Juneteenth events. That's something for you all to be very proud of, that you all help establish here and that we can continue to grow on. So I just wanted to thank you all and the staff of this city that helped do that. This committee didn't do it alone. Yes, we're doing the work in the meetings, but we did not achieve that kind of environment alone. And so we hope that you all will see this as a great way to welcome people into June as well, and also this community. So thank you.
And a special message from CEO of the Black Chamber of Commerce, she could not make it tonight. She's stuck at the airport. So she asked that I present her apologies to you guys.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. I should ask Mr. Sanders to introduce
Yes,
himself, too.
just for the record, my name is Rick Sanders, and I'm a Roseville resident, South McCarran's Boulevard.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned the Black Chamber of Commerce. I think they, speaking as a bit of an observer, I thought they were a good partner this year and a nice transition in terms of who you're working with in terms of the planning committee and the support that they provided. And I think it was an excellent connection, and hopefully that's something that everybody would like to continue. And obviously we'll leave it to the committee and the chamber to figure those things out, but I just thought that went well. And I don't know if I should mention this or not, but Councilmember Groff forgot to bring a hat to the event. And it was a sunny day. We had excellent weather, which I'd love to take credit for. And he was assisted in choosing an excellent hat by one of the vendors there, and Councilmember Groff has been sporting that hat ever since at all the
when you
events
went-
I've seen him at.
Or the Taste of Rose Fest.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
So
nice.
if you're in the market for a hat, and hopefully that vendor will be back next year, but that is the place
She's
to
a
go.
good salesperson.
Maybe a picture.
And excellent taste as well. So, no, thank you all for all the work that you do and all the volunteers do to put on that event, and I think it, as you noted, it just keeps getting better every year.
And wanted to say thank you to Noel and
Yeah.
Devontae for their participation and
Yes.
help.
For sure, for sure.
Oh, and for the record, I was in charge of weather.
Okay, all right, thanks, Rick. Is there anyone else from the general public for general public comment this evening? All right, doesn't appear to be the case. Then we'll proceed with our agenda. Next on our agenda, we have recognitions and donations. And we have a proclamation that we do every year in support of our local Golden K Kiwanis folks. And I think it probably is appropriate if the representatives of Golden K want to maybe come up and have a seat at the table. Usually we give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and their organization and some of the work they do prior to the proclamation, and then also a little follow-up activity that they're all fully prepared for this evening. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jim House, and I've been a long-time resident of Roseville, and enjoy being a part of it. The Northeast Golden K is made up of suburban, active, but retired professionals mostly, and our major role is in support of community. We meet weekly on Tuesday at the John Rose Center, and annually we distribute funds to a number of charities, mostly focused toward children. Northeast Family Youth Services, Community Partners for Youth, Kids in Need, Every Meal, Keystone, Ralph Reeder, Kiwanis International Children's Fund, and more, and do a lot of volunteer work at bridging and the other community activities that some of the more active and physically able people are able to do. But we have enjoyed our fundraising activity is soliciting from local businesses and professionals contributions to our mission. And in addition to these volunteer activities focused on children, we present this year 5 $1,500 scholarships for graduates at Roseville High School, Fairview Alternative School, Mounds View, Irondale, White Bear Lake. So we've had some additional extension into other parts of the community, and the contributions to the community since in the last 15 years have exceeded $500,000 from many sources. So we really appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and we've enjoyed your support and encouragement in previous years, and we'll continue our program with a box of peanuts distributed to donors as a reward for their thoughtfulness that they can hand out to their customers.
All right.
Max DeLong, co-chair of this year's peanut campaign. And we have Nancy Height, who is also on the committee here with us tonight. So we've opened up our box of peanuts, and we'll bring around the.
All right, so everybody in the audience, get ready to help support the Kiwanis. If you're willing and able this evening, it's a low-pressure sales tactic, not sales, but solicitation tactic. If it's all right, then I will go ahead and read the proclamation, and then a council motion and hopefully a supportive vote will be in order, and then we'll give you a copy of the proclamation as well, as we always do. So with that, the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Northeast Metro Golden K Kiwanis Club, headquartered in Roseville, is an organization dedicated to improving the lives of children and young people, and whereas the Golden K Peanut Campaign provides businesses, professional entities, and individuals the opportunity to help support community initiatives focused on children and youth and food insecurity, and whereas in order to help finance its many and varied programs, the Northeast Metro Golden K Kiwanis Club has requested today be designated as a kickoff for its annual Peanut Campaign fundraiser. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Roseville designates Monday, July 6th, 2026, as Roseville Golden K Kiwanis Peanut Day.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Schroeder, seconded by Councilmember Groff. Discussion on the motion?
I look
Councilmember Schroeder?
forward to this every year, so it makes my donation easy. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for all the work you do. It's very greatly appreciated. I work a lot with NYFS, and I know you've been a great supporter for years.
Thank you.
The young people in the community appreciate it.
And I seem to recall that that one of the activities that some of the members are involved with is also some tutoring in the schools, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I failed to mention the tutoring in two different schools, math and science and reading, and so it's been another volunteer role.
Yeah, no, very much appreciated as well.
Very much so.
All right, well, we probably should vote on the motion here. So we've got the motion before us to adopt this proclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. That proclamation is adopted. And we'll just pause for a moment for some peanut distribution, and I'll give you your copy of the proclamation.
Thank you so much. Would you like some peanuts? Sure. Thank you. Right, it's been weeks.
Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna do this?
Thank you. He wants the money.
Yeah.
He wants the money.
There you
should
go.
make us put our money in.
Proclamation. Can you get it? All right. Okay.
You're welcome.
Is that dinner?
I contributed part for you.
You can contribute enough for me.
There you go.
Here, you can take that one to Jim.
We should probably apologize in advance to the folks here and watching at home for all the crinkling sounds that you're going to hear throughout the rest of the meeting.
And the munching.
Yeah, exactly. We'll try to be as polite about our snacking as we can here. All right. With that, then we'll let that activity continue while we look to proceed with our agenda. Next, under business items, we have two items this evening. The first is item 7A, which is to consider the draft. I believe this is the final draft of the Climate Equity Action Plan. We have our sustainability specialist, Noel Bakken, with us this evening, as well as a representative of our consultant, to bring this back before the council. We had a preview, I believe it was in April.
Yes.
And now we're back, I believe, for the final draft, if
This
I'm not
is the
mistaken.
final draft, yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Bach.
Thank you, council members. I'm so proud and excited to bring the final draft of this plan to you. We have been working on this plan for the past
Do you
10
move the
months, but
microphone closer to you?
It says do not touch.
they said don't touch it.
They probably just haven't adjusted it yet.
Is this a little better?
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, I mentioned we've been working on this plan for the past 10 months or so, but really this plan is the culmination of years of work at the city. Long before I even started here, there's been a lot of commitment to sustainability and climate work, starting even from as early as the 2030 comprehensive plan, possibly earlier. So I'm very, very pleased to bring it to the council today, and just wanted to thank our consultant, Ted Redmond, for his work on the plan, as well as our Climate Justice Advisory Group. We've got a couple of members in the audience here today. and also the members of Resilient Roseville who have been committed to climate work for years in the city as well. And so I owe a lot of the work to them as well. So wanted to put some thank yous out there before we get started. But then, oh, I should pull up the presentation. I think that would probably be helpful too. So excited I couldn't bring it up.
Thank you. Wonderful. So thank you very much for letting me be here tonight. I'm Ted Redmond with Pale Blue Dot. And so we were here, I think it was almost 3 months ago. I think it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And so what I thought I would do is just give you a brief presentation, kind of updating you what has happened since then. And then clearly I'm happy to answer any questions or get into anything deeper as you may wish. The plan, the Climate Equity Action Plan, does align with the strategic plan goals, specifically goal number 3, which is city infrastructure supports the sustainability goals of the city. Success indicator was called out as being the climate action plan is created, completed, and implemented. So that's part of what drives us to be here. The process for the plan development was a four-phase process. Context, where we did a lot of background research and baseline documentation. Community engagement, which had a range of engagement opportunities that were implemented, giving people different ways of interacting with the plan, giving feedback in different ways. A very collaborative, in-depth planning effort that involved both volunteers as well as city staff and staff from allied agencies. That was a very collaborative effort. And then the final completion phase, which was, of course, having the draft plan, bringing it forward for input, and then refining based on that input. So the plan goals, we have a near-term goal for 2036, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 54% below baseline levels by 2036, and a long-term goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. Those goals both are in alignment with the state of Minnesota goals, the Metropolitan Council goals, and Ramsey County goals. So we're all kind of aiming in the same general direction, which is good to know. The plan framework has 6 sectors that focus on climate resilience and climate mitigation or reduction of GHG emissions. And equity considerations are sort of baked within all of those sectors as the goals and actions were developed. So with that, as we started off saying that we were last in front of you on the 6th of April, since that time, there was a community input workshop in May. We presented to the PWET Commission in June for their review and input. There was also a detailed review period for staff and for planning team members. They provided a lot of really great in-depth review commentary. And there was also a public review and input available through June 8th. And so out of all of, and for the public input, I'll just sort of highlight that. We were able to track numbers of hits. We didn't track individuals, so we don't know who that is. We're not tracking too deeply. But we knew how many people were visiting the web pages, so we could get a sense of traffic. The projects and the plan's web pages had over 400 total visitors during the public review period. And we received a total of 23 online reviews. So we would have enjoyed receiving more reviews, but we do know that it was being viewed, that people were actually looking at it. So that's successful in itself. In terms of the review comments received, when we look at all the responses, 53% were agreeing completely, about 26% were agreeing mostly somewhat, 6% were neither agreeing nor disagreeing, and then there was 7% each that were disagreeing mostly, somewhat, or disagreeing completely. So just to give a sense of the overall tenor of the review
And
considerations.
that's across all responses to all of the areas.
Correct.
Exactly, yes.
I mean, is that of the 23 people?
Correct.
Or so that if you go back to that slide, so what that's showing is that that's 12 people agreeing completely. Is that
No,
what
not,
you're at?
not necessarily. That's a good question. So it is across all responses, and because there are multiple sections in the plan, somebody might in this section disagree on
An action.
on a goal, and then in this section they may agree on a goal. So it isn't necessarily people, but responses to the goal questions.
So some people might
They're
not have
accumulated.
responded to everything, but they might have added comments for specific items that they
Oh, okay.
had
What,
specific.
what was the number of people?
23 total responses?
23
Yeah.
people total?
I think so, yeah.
And
Okay.
probably of those 23, I would say 10 or 15 people. I can't remember the exact number offhand. It was a fairly small.
Yeah.
Thanks. Percentages always are difficult, right?
It is, yeah. We always struggle with because there are multiple ways of asking. I mean, they're looking at multiple sections. We decided in this instance would just show the total in terms of the responses received, not the people.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions before we move on?
So from those different review inputs, there have been some revisions, some tweaks made to the plan. The first is that we added a 2-page sort of infographic, if you will, a plan at a glance. It's intended here to just sort of summarize the plan, provide a sense of how it was created, what the plan orientation is, plan goals, and long-term emission reduction values. We also added a full action, which is focused on establishing or helping to support establishing ordinance guidance around data center sustainability. There were some comments and input around data center concerns, if you will. And so it's just an action that could suggest how the city may explore establishing some guidance on that topic. We also had a wide range of edit inputs and comments from staff and others. So some issues that you might expect, the missing period words that maybe are better phrases, those sorts of things. So substantive in terms of helping the document be better, but not changing the intent of what you may have already seen, if that makes sense. So the next steps, after plan adoption, the staff will develop annual implementation plans. And that is intended to then help identify annual priority actions, outline needed resources, whether it's staff or funding or some other consideration, identify grant or funding sources if needed, and recommending projects and budgets as needed for council consideration. So the intent is that would kind of happen on a recurring basis so that these topics would continue to come forth for the council for continued guidance and input. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or get into anything further.
All right, thank you. Are there questions from the council for staff or the consultant? Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, I know earlier we were emailing back and forth, and of course, unfortunately, with the holiday weekend, it kind of cut short the amount of time we could talk about it. And I know there was like one change about the wording, about like the no mow may.
Yeah.
So I know you said this was the final, but I assume any changes that we talk about tonight, then like we had discussed earlier today, that would be incorporated into this?
Correct. And we still we're finishing up some storytelling projects, both with the community and also with Roseville High School students. And so some of those items will also be added into appendices, and we're hoping to create a landing page for everything as well, where everything will live. So there are a few remaining items that will be added in before the plan document itself is finalized. So if you see other minor changes as you go through it, please let us know, and we're happy
Okay,
to.
so there's still time.
I thought I had caught all the no mow mays and
Yeah.
multiples.
Yeah, me
2 staff members had changed a couple less mow may things, and so
There's a lot of pages here,
Yes.
so it's good that you have a lot of eyes on it.
I
for sure.
apologize to any community members who printed
No.
it out. It's
And then I did want to say, I really like to see the implementation page too. I love to see the impacts, could the action place unintentional burdens on low-income residents or communities of color? how can the potential impacts be reduced or avoided, and how they're shared benefits. So I'm really pleased to see that that's in there, because sometimes when we have really good intentions, sometimes you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, and how that affects things. So thank you for having that in there. And with that said, there's one sentence that I saw in here that I thought might be worthwhile to remove on 2.5. This is under the, you're talking about the EV ready ordinance for low, for affordable housing in here, which you say in here, let's see, lack home charging and face higher pollution, and then it goes, updating the EV ready ordinance can help close these gaps, which I think is a good thing to have in there, because that also corresponds with one of your action steps. But the next sentence, when you say EV ready requirements are low cost, easy wins that future proof affordable housing by requiring a EV ready space per unit and low power level 2 receptacles. I think that's too specific, because I know we have a number of our staff are going to be looking at the EV requirements.
Yes.
And underneath our action, it talks about doing that.
Yes.
And so I think I'd rather not have a solution that specific in here and just say, yes, we need to make sure and look that it's the right way to go.
Yes.
So I would suggest we take that sentence out.
I think that's fine. I've been very closely involved in that. I was at the Planning Commission last week to discuss our EV ordinance, and really what came out of that research and discussion was the state building requirements are going to be changing, and they're going to be introducing electric vehicle charging requirements for new
Yes.
developments.
Yes.
And so that's really going to nullify our existing ordinance. We're exploring ways to kind of make our ordinance a little bit more friendly to developers in the meantime. But I think it's worthwhile to kind of take out that very specific and
Right.
re-examine, because we're not going to be able, the state doesn't make any differential between residential versus non-residential anyways, and so.
Yes, yeah, so that way it's, I think it opens it up to more
Yes.
possibilities of solutions
Yes,
on that.
absolutely.
And then, so yeah, I do like that. And then when I was looking at the costs, of course, I'm looking at the costs on the back, right? Thank you for getting back to me, because I had asked about some of the formulas. And most of these costs are, and savings are for the residents of Roseville, correct? This isn't for the city of Roseville.
Exactly, yeah. And it's, they're estimated, they're just trying to help provide sort of order of magnitude, but it is intended to be cumulative saving and cost on those categories that are spelled out.
Absolutely. And then the one piece we don't have in here, which you talked about earlier, was we don't have the cost of implementing this plan. That's a separate piece from this. So this is more on showing what, if this all goes through and this happens, this is what it could look like. Correct?
Yes, yes.
And this includes everybody in Roseville, not just the city. I didn't want people to think that, oh, this is how much the city is going to save. And I didn't want people to have the wrong impression of that piece.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because I know these numbers are quite complicated, and so to be able to dig through it, I wanted to just clarify that. So, yeah, otherwise I think, a lot of work in this, and it's like, I really wish we would have had a few more people respond to it. I know it's hard to get input, but, we have to work with what we have, correct? So.
And we had 3 community meetings throughout the duration of the plan development as well. So we did have people coming in to comment on first the goals specifically, and then the actions that we drafted to meet those goals. And then we also did a third prioritization exercise with the community to learn which actions would you like to see the city focus on most. And so that's part of the implementation matrix that I included in the packet that kind of helps give us some of those But yes, it's the rule with community engagement, more is always better.
It's always hard. And then I'm pleased that, because I know with our comprehensive plan coming up that this is a requirement, and it's very nice to get ahead of that game.
Yes.
And that we've actually aren't going to try to quickly put it together, at that point. So it's good to start it out earlier. And I know this has taken a lot of time and effort, so thank you. Okay, that's it.
All right, other comments or questions? Councilmember Bauer?
Sure. You can leave that slide up, actually.
Okay, sure.
I had a bunch. So looking at it, as you note the potential economic savings, and as noted, none of these numbers actually have implementation cost in them. So I guess one comment is I'm not so sure about these numbers. For example, we can pick any one of these, but we'll pick the first one that's up there. You note the VMT saved per year on that one, and you say the average operating cars per mile. For example, that study that you picked, that 77 cents per mile, that's actually, if you looked into it and dig into it, that's mostly for things like depreciation, registration, maintenance of the vehicle. Actually, maintenance would be per mile. A bunch of other things that are not actually, you would have if just purely by owning the vehicle and keeping it in your garage. If you actually do the math on this correctly, it's actually the average cost per mile is actually down to less than 20 cents or right around 20 cents. So the economic savings on this is significantly less, which you may want to redo that math because then on your page, what is this, page 1 of 15 on the document, you show the economic savings of that as being like $182 million. It significantly changes those numbers. There was a lot of those miscalculations that I saw in this document. And so you may want to redo that because at the end of the day, doing this, and I guess that brings up my next question is, you list, I think, 135 different things here, but none of them have cost or implementation costs or how much it would cost to do this. For example, we're talking about EV charging at apartments or low affordable housing. Those are quite expensive when you think about the number of kilowatts or the number of amps you now need to pull, especially in a multifamily if they're all charging at the same time as an apartment complex. It's an insane amount of service to be delivered to there.
It's a challenge too because the numbers that Ted put together for this cost savings is kind of historical data versus if we were looking to adding something like EV charging to a site, the cost to the charging can vary dramatically based on what kind of transformers are already on site or if Xcel needs to add additional transformers. So things like those costs kind of are going to have to be brought up as on a case-by-case basis as we move into implementation. It's just very difficult to project what each and every one of these 100+ actions is going to cost.
But then how do we prioritize which ones to do if I don't know what the costs are? I was really hoping with this that I would at least get some ideas of costs and see what's reasonable. Some of these are going to be, significant costs, right? And I don't know, I have a guess based on
Some
conversations
maybe,
and phone
yeah.
calls I get about residents and what their property taxes are, the appetite for that. And I know I asked at the April 6th meeting that, hey, did you ask like how much people are willing to have their property taxes go up to implement this? And that
And
wasn't
some
done.
of these, may be more cost intensive to implement than others. Some of them are merely education programs that really cost only staff time, volunteers to work out. So it's the implementation with the prioritization, and I'll let you go in a second. It was really important for me to get the feedback from the community where they really want to see the city move first, and then we can kind of look at those high priority items and say, okay, which of these are financially feasible for us in the next couple of years? Is there a grant program that we could apply to offset those costs? So I think because of just the volume of information and data in here, it's a little difficult to try to give one single number for how much would it cost to implement all of this.
But we'll have to do that eventually, right?
On a per action basis, yes.
And then also, how do I figure out, we can pick those low cost ones, but I'm guessing that's not going to achieve the goal that you had in the early part of the slide of 54% reduction in greenhouse gases.
A
Right?
combination will. That's why there's a combination of actions in there. And part of the reason why we found the cities that tend to successfully implement will be looking at year by year what are the right actions to bring forward that year. That is a combination of things. It's both the vision that you're trying to create as well as, hey, what other projects are we working on this year that then actions are a really good fit for. And when we think of them that way, there may be actions that the cost or challenge or difficulty of implementing them becomes lowered because we're already doing a thing. We're looking at ordinances this year, so hey, this suggestion to review an ordinance is easy to do, or it's the right timing for that. Or we've got an intern that's doing certain things, and this action that we were thinking about now would be much easier to implement because of that. These kinds of operational questions that help make sense about which actions to do, in addition to seeking to achieve the goal. So for that reason, that's why the intention and suggestion is that sort of annual sub-plans, these are the actions that we want to focus on this year, come forward so that then whatever, if there are costs associated with an action, it can be based on both a timely dollar and also what is happening in the moment in terms of staff availability, or, is there support that's necessary because, maybe right now we don't have the right staff contingent, or whatever the issue might be for that specific action.
And some of these also are government agency cooperative actions as well. So especially with transportation, we're talking about transit usage that really involves, a lot of work on Metro Transit side. There's only so much the city can really do except for say, hey, Metro Transit, we would love to see X, Y, Z in the city. And so there's a lot of nuance to each of these actions that really does make it very difficult to forecast a long-term cost for each and every item. And some of these, I can go to any one of these clean energy and efficient buildings. Let's look at, one of these is collaborating with partners to establish an incentive program for deep energy retrofits for low-income houses. That's not something that costs anything except for staff time for us to work with different agencies that work.
You note incentive there, right? I'm assuming incentive is, short of just an education or knowing that the program exists, I'm sure there's some kind of fiscal
There could be
cost to
some
it.
funding involved, but a lot of it is going to be research, partnering with energy to promote household and participation in Home Energy Squad. That's a program that our city is already promoting. So adopt an energy benchmarking ordinance. A lot of these are staff time intensive projects overall.
Yeah, I just saw incentive a lot, and I just saw a lot of dollar signs.
Understood.
There can be different types of incentives.
Yes,
of course.
that's right.
That is true.
Councilmember Strawn.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to push back on Councilmember Bowers saying 77 cents a mile is very out of line and that it's 20 cents. The GAO current reimbursement rate is 72.5 cents. And they do take all that information into consideration because cars cost a lot of money. And so you have to amortize that and you have to depreciate that over time. And it just is.
Depreciation doesn't
You know what?
factor
I'm
in.
not talking to you.
Well, then I'll
Actually, let's allow Councilmember Strawn to make her comments.
happy to talk to you, Colin.
Councilmember Strawn.
I wanted to say, I think this is a very well laid out plan. I appreciate all the actionable items. I found that it was very frustrating in the 2017 Vulnerable Populations Report, which I really appreciated having be there and have that as an option, that there weren't a lot of actionable steps and that a lot of people didn't know it existed even now. And so I appreciate that this has a public-facing piece to it and that it does have actions. I think it is a lot like a path review or other things. When things come up, the priorities shift based on funding and other options. I know that I have been to at least 2 to 3 meetings regarding this myself, having missed the last one. I don't know how.
It was a Monday night.
Oh, okay. But I'd say I don't want to diminish the amount of time and effort and the wide swath of people that were involved in part of it. This isn't 23 people making a recommendation. This has been, over time, hundreds of people with input. So maybe on one particular thing, but I think this is not just 3 people who have an agenda. This is a lot of people who care deeply about it and who have worked, and many of whom are here because they still care very deeply about it. And so I don't want to diminish their input or the passion that they have about it. I did want to ask a question about the revision based on input that's found on page 13 of the presentation. The 3.6 about the data centers. We've gotten a lot of questions about data centers, and can you just speak to kind of what the intention or how that, what the goal or what that is about more fully?
So when we received the public feedback of the draft review that was online during the month of May into June, that comment came up a couple of times from 2 separate commenters about data centers and concern both about energy usage and the impact on energy rates as well as water usage. I mean, there's a lot of information flying around right now about the impacts of data centers, and especially seeing that the city of Minneapolis has recently had some small centers go in their downtown area. Roseville has a larger industrial area. We're not necessarily immune to the fact that there's a possibility that that could come to our city. So I agreed with the folks that brought up data centers and felt it would be we would be remiss if we did not include a mention of data centers in the plan and start thinking about it a little bit, because it seems like more a matter of when we may see this come to our city versus if. And so I wanted to make sure that the staff and council were, at least had it in the back of their heads and could start kind of thinking about it a little bit if this does come into play. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to make sure that just because it got added, that doesn't check off the box. We already did it. We're good. It's going to be a pretty invasive process to make sure that we engage people. I'm assuming that most people are going to probably be against it, the ones who are vocal, but there's going to be people who are for it. And so and some of them may have very deep pockets. So we would have to really be conscious of our decision and how we would put that out there so that we would make sure we got that.
And I think this is a great example of just kind of how these actions are playing out in general, is that we really intend that when we decide to move forward with any of these actions, or we're planning on having a staff implementation group to discuss all of these things as we move into it, as well as work with the Climate Justice Advisory Group going forward to talk about implementation a couple times a year. Depending on what types of projects we move forward with, there will always be a community engagement aspect, so that just because it's in the plan now and the community had their time to comment, and doesn't mean that this is their last opportunity. It'll be brought back to the community so we can have a time to discuss this a little bit more in depth. Because as you can imagine, when you come to these events and you see 80 plus actions, it's a little hard to kind of wrap your head around all of these, and I understand that, and so we'll take it at a step basis to make sure voices are heard.
I just had one last comment. There was another comment about how much are people willing to have their taxes go up to have a climate action plan, and I don't think we can continue to look at things like that. I think we have to say how much are people willing to reduce on road repairs and other things that only conform to an auto-driven society, and that we make sure we are planning for the future and that our dollars are going to sustainability. And so it is not just about, we don't blink an eye when we look at the PMP money for the year to replace roads and it's not because we don't think they need to be done. We do, but it is a matter of priorities that we have to continue to take into consideration. And so I think, how much are people willing to have their taxes go up? I think it's how much are we willing to relook at things with a wider lens. And so, thank you.
Right, other comments, questions? Councilmember Groff.
Noel, you sort of stole my thunder with your last comment, because I look at this a little differently. I look at it as a plan. It's a climate equity action plan. It's something we're looking at to put in place. It's a value we have as a community, and we would like to move forward with this. I really like the detail in the end where you actually broke it down, where individuals could choose things in their own lives to do, like put up a rain barrel or a rain garden, or consider other things that would affect the environment. So that was really effective. I think all the research was really good. I appreciate the people in the community who put information forward. I see this as something that, as you said, when something is coming up that's a project in Roseville, it could be added in. It could be added in cost effectively. Or when it's going to be done, then we'll need to look more carefully at what the costs are.
Right.
To predict out to 2050 what the costs are going to be is, I know we try to do that sometimes, but it is not very effective. The further out you go, the less information it works, and it isn't very accurate. So I think the plan is good, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I did want to just, for my own benefit on the 77 cents per mile, to go back to that, as I understood it, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am, the idea there was that we're reducing vehicle miles traveled. And so fewer miles traveled equals lower cost theoretically. And so the whole cost per mile is what we're talking about eliminating. So that's how that's calculated. And if that's either wrong or oversimplified, let me know. But that's how I understood that as I was looking at that. Yep. The other thing I wanted to note too is that as far as implementation, I think we need to make sure as a city, well, first of all, stepping back, certainly a lot of what's in here is things that individuals and businesses and other entities in the community would have to do to have this impact. There's sort of a couple of different categories of what the city can do. Certainly we can change how we do our business, types of vehicles we purchase, how we use energy in our facilities, whether we add more solar and those sorts of things. All those things certainly have costs. and/or savings, and so you have to look at the balance of both of those. Then there are regulatory things where we can require certain aspects of new developments. Certainly the state building code, that kind of helps because that lays the foundation.
Yes.
But where we have other requirements, I think that's where we need to be mindful of impacts. But at the same time, if it is something that's in form of incentives, I think about, especially if it's incentives for implementation as it relates to, for instance, affordable housing developments. We're still looking for ways to spend some of those affordable housing sales tax dollars that we are getting routinely from the state and that are time limited. And so if we don't come up with ways to use those, and assuming, and I don't know the facts for sure, but I mean, if that was something that could be a source of funding, it is something that we're getting already, and we need to figure out how to use it. And so it may have a way to match with some of those types of incentive programs. And so I don't want to say that everything's wonderful and that incentives don't cost money, but we may have opportunities to look at the sources of the funding for those, whether it be grants and those types of things, or other entities, as was mentioned, and or even funds that we have coming in that we're trying to figure out how to use more appropriately. So just some feedback on that. But then the other piece of it, like I was talking about, is that a fair amount of this is going to be people doing things outside of what the city itself does. And so those certainly are going to have to be decisions that have to make sense for businesses and individuals and other entities in the city as well. And so I think it's good to have this framework to provide sort of an overall idea of these things, both for this organization and what we can do, and as well for the broader community, because it's going to have to be everybody that sort of makes all those decisions and takes those actions to make the difference that we need to make. And so I think this is important to have. As Councilmember Groff said, I definitely look at this as a guideline and as a decision-making document to help as we go forward. The one thing I wanted to say about implementation, especially annual plans, is that we really need to sync that with our budget process.
Yes.
So that we're not getting to the point of, the city manager has recommended his budget in August, and oh, by the way, here's in September, here's our plans for implementation next year on that, because that's not going to work, and I'm sure staff is fully aware of that, but I wanted to just kind of emphasize that for the benefit of the public as well, is that we have to make sure that our process and our implementation, whether it's our strategic plan in general or this specific plan, that we are timing things with our budget decision-making, because ultimately that's where those discussions about resources and how we decide those uses of our limited resources, because they are coming from the public, how those decisions and discussions will be made.
If I may add a comment, when we developed our equity criteria with the Climate Justice Advisory Group, Ted gave us 12 or 15 different criteria that the group would choose from to measure all the different goals and actions against. And one of the criteria that they selected was actually, how feasible is this for the city and other entities related to implement? So kind of feasibility in that funding piece is actually part of something that the group did look at very closely. And as we move into implementation later this year, where the group is not going to move us forward and say, okay, we're ready for our first multi-million-dollar project. We understand that budget is already in flux, and we're used to operating lean. We didn't have a city budget for sustainability for a very long time, up until this plan was developed. Really, this is the first time we've had really dedicated funds, and so we're looking forward to seeing how we can selectively use funding in a helpful way for the community.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments from council members? I do also want to provide an opportunity for members of the public. Councilmember Bauer.
Everyone follow up. So if we're thinking about like the affordability and sustainability, so say we have an affordability development that wants to go in, and then we have, for example, some of these sustainabilities like the EV charging or some like the gardens that you talked about, those things, those additional costs. How would you recommend balancing that? Because those additional things are going to increase the cost of that development, which the developer, I'm assuming, is going to have to recover those expenses, which is going to generate increased rent, which is kind of, against the whole idea of affordability. So, and given the priorities of those looking for where to live and the scale of needs, housing seems to be more important. But I'm curious to know how do you want us to do that, or what would you use in that analysis?
I think that's a really great question, and I think having seen the pro formas of some of these developments, I understand how tight those margins really are, and there were incentives in the past that some of those developers could take advantage of that would help. I believe the Edison building was one that was able to take advantage of a lot of incentives to get their solar carport involved and that kind of thing. But I think it would take, one thing that Janice mentioned when I was at the Planning Commission meeting last week was that really every development is a little bit different. And so I think one thing that the city's done a really great job at is working with developers to try to work with them to make sure that our requirements are still in alignment with the needs of that development. And so I think the variance that recently went through with the large medical company that's coming in on the road near La Tapatia is a great example where they put forth some information about here's why we don't need as many chargers, and so we're going to reduce that amount. And so in the case of an affordable housing development, if adding electric vehicle chargers was cost prohibitive, there might be other ways. A rain garden is a much less expensive installation relatively. There's also, I would also recommend working with Our Car does multifamily hub processes. The Edison is actually a hub for that program right now where they install the chargers and have a place for electric vehicle car share vehicles to come back and forth from that location, which is another more affordable way to get into electric vehicles. Really, that's an issue I've had with electric vehicles for a long time, is that they're just the barrier to entry is very high for a lot of folks. And until the used market starts to really catch up, it's hard for people who are qualified for affordable housing to really get into an electric vehicle, much less maybe any vehicles. So, what's the most appropriate solution at that time? And so I think that's a good example of how we would probably have to just massage, whatever we're working with a little
When
bit.
you mentioned, I did do the same thing. I went and looked at the used EV market, and the cheapest one I could find in the U.S. was $20,000, and that was already approaching the warranty. And looking at 80% EMI here in Ramsey County, that's $72,000. And yeah, that's where I started wondering, if we put these ordinances in for these, we're going to put these things in, and we didn't really solve the problem because they just can't access these EV vehicles.
Correct.
And so that's where some things in this.
And if I may, in terms of how the plan is organized, so there's kind of layers to the kinds of actions that are being suggested. And for instance, with EV, one layer is to explore adopting and modifying EV-ready requirements, which at that point in time, you're not necessarily, you could, depending on how the city actually ended up creating a revised ordinance, it could say all sorts of things. But typically an EV-ready ordinance is not saying put in chargers necessarily. It's saying let's make sure that chargers can be installed readily and easily, which does actually bring down the costs for putting in those chargers. It typically, especially for new construction, doesn't really add much cost because you're thinking about it in advance. So it's as easy as making sure you've identified where you would put EVs and that you're piping conduit so that you can pull the wire when you install very easily, and that you've got some dedicated space for your panels, etc. Same thing for solar ready, where for a new construction, solar ready would typically say, as you're designing how the building is laid out, are you thinking about solar, and where would solar make sense for this building? How can you think about solar being an easy add, and how would you wire solar down to a panel? Do you have enough panel space, etc.?
Is the roof supportive?
Exactly. And so doing that to an existing building can have cost to it, a fair bit of cost depending on what the existing building is. For new construction or an significant renovation, it usually is not very costly. There may be a little bit of panel cost, but it's usually not that much. It's more about thinking and planning, which then drives down the cost in the future. And in the instance of an affordable housing, that actually, I think, ends up offering a potential benefit, because if there's a grant that comes about, there's been rounds of state grants around solar, for instance. Maybe there's some other sort of funding source, as the mayor was pointing out, that could actually offer partnership with an affordable housing owner to actually get installed, EV stations, EV chargers, or solar or something like that. Or another entity that says, hey, we can put EV chargers on your property if you can give us a space. Well, if they've already got the space, that's easy. So in that instance, the actions that are in there can be supportive in the long run to help make sure that those affordable housing homes can become more and more affordable as those elements could become added in the future. There are other actions that would try to help promote, encourage, and incentivize, et cetera, but by and large, the way the actions are designed is intended to help create a framework to support folks moving forward.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Yeah, and actually, and back to what I was talking about earlier too, is that the affordable housing thing was one of my concerns, that we weren't going to add additional costs to make it more burdensome for the renters then, because then it's added to them. And that's why I was talking about making sure that you have in this implementation that the potential impacts that, could cause unthought, some of these consequences. And so I'd want to make sure that some of this sounds very black and white, and so I think that's kind of a little bit where some of this is coming from, that yes, boom, boom, boom. And I think that's what when I first I was having trouble with it, but then when I got to this point where it says yeah, this is what we said we were going to do. We still need to do an analysis of it, and does it make sense to do it or not? Because I want to make sure that this isn't just so black and white that we blindly go ahead with something that could cause harm. And you talk about low-income people and people of color, and you have senior citizens, and you have people with disability. I mean, there's all kinds of different groups that could be harmed by some of these things. If we're, so that's why I want to make sure as we're going forward, we have it in here and understand that this will not be cast in stone, and that we will think about not doing something or changing something once we had an opportunity to look at it. So I think that's really important for me, because again, I don't want any harm to come from people that we're not thinking about. And today we don't know. And so as we walk, as we go into this, because we're talking, some of this plan, we're talking to 2050 even. And so some of that, things can change dramatically then. So I just want to make sure that that is an understanding, that it's not just, it's a guideline, and it's something we're trying to strive for, but it's not in concrete.
Correct. I mean, as we've mentioned, the electric vehicle ordinance landscape, it has already changed a little bit since this was drafted. The intent with putting the Climate Justice Advisory Group together was specifically to make sure that we weren't actively harming any specific groups through these actions. And that was some of the work that they did, reviewing every single action, every single goal, to make sure that it was aligned with centering equity and making sure vulnerable groups are going to be hit harder by rising utility rates, hot summers and things like that, aren't going to be overly burdened. And so, and as Mayor Rowe mentioned, it is a guideline. We plan to use this as, a roadmap, but we can take a turn off somewhere else if we need to, based on changing technology, based on changing incentives, based on changing intents of the residents as well, what people would like to see us do.
Great. Councilmember Strawn.
I'd just like to point out that seems like it'd be a little false narrative on the affordable housing. Deeply affordable housing is 30% AMI, and according to the study that I found from 2023, 72% of that is constructed by nonprofits. Most builders can't get into, we've talked about this before with Community Development Director Gunlock, that it's not a place that private equity funds are going to step in and look to make money. And so if someone qualifies at 30% AMI, they're not going to bear the burden. It's the developer who's going to. And so, and they're going to find a different source. And I think we're saying that we're hoping to find grants and other things like that. But I just want to make sure this isn't a capitalist venture. We're looking at anyone who would be willing to step in. And we've been looking since I've been on council, and no one has offered to come in at 30% AMI because of the costs, no matter who they are. Generally, they have to be mixed ratio, and even that, they have to be a really solid model with supportive housing services, having worked in this field. But I just think it's really important to know that 72% of the developers in this study from a couple years ago were nonprofits, and that we're not putting that burden onto those folks, at least in this regard. That it's not going to change how much of their income has to go toward housing. It's going to come about how it's going to work as an overall project. And I think it would be silly to get stuck on that piece because we're hoping that over time we're going to find we'd have no idea what incentives might be in the future. Changes in leadership, the state or federal levels could really impact how we see things and how we review climate change and other things. I think we take it at face value. We do our very best, not knowing exactly what it's going to cost, but knowing that something will change. No matter what it is, something will change, and that hopefully we'll be ready for it.
I'll be the first person to say if something that we are requiring is introducing affordable housing to this community cost prohibitive, I'm the first person to say, let's get rid of it. I would rather see people housed and be able to afford their housing versus, splitting hairs over we want solar panels or we want, XYZ, excluding, maybe skimping on things like insulation and, safety and that sort of thing.
Well, and I think that's an important thing to note is that no affordable housing at any AMI level is going to be built unless it works financially, whether it's a for-profit developer, a nonprofit developer, or anybody. And so the whole point is that if a requirement is not going to make a project work, the key is finding financial ways that if a requirement is important, because certainly it can't be denied that improving how much greenhouse gas emissions are happening in our community has a benefit to everybody in the community or who potentially could live in the community. And so that's a very good thing to sort of have as the top level goal. And then it's just a function of how we figure out ways to accomplish that. And we definitely, there's not going to be a project built that doesn't work financially. And if there's a requirement to have a certain, environmental sustainability aspect and it's not supported financially through assistance to the project is not going to happen. And so it definitely, as Councilmember Strawn said, it won't be passed along to renters because the project won't be built in the first place. But I think one of the challenges is that even market rate housing is cost challenged, and so sometimes incentives may have to be applicable to market rate housing or other types of developments as well. And so that's a broader discussion outside of this specific city and what we can do, but certainly it's on the table for all the decision makers that are involved in that sort of thing. I do want to provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak to this as well. So maybe Ms. Bach and Mr. Redmond, if you can have a seat for a moment, and hopefully we won't make you sit down and then find out nobody wants to speak. But it's happened before. So we'll open it up for anyone from the public who wishes to weigh in on this final draft of the Climate Equity Action Plan this evening that we're considering. Once again, we just ask that you have a seat at the table in front of one of the microphones, state your name and street or address for the record, and we have a 3-minute time limit, which I will try to enforce gently but generously, or vice versa.
Well, I'm Donna Peterson, and you maybe have noticed that I actually did submit comments for all of you on a couple of different topics. And it's a little hard for me to be here and hear a lot of concerns, negative concerns, I guess, because I worked for 20 years in a program at the University of Minnesota where our goal was helping companies reduce waste, reduce emissions. And we saw all of the benefits. And I still remember a printer that came to me one time and he said, I can't be a great printer because if it costs me, if I save money, then how can I say I make, basically, he was doing good environmental stuff. He was also saving money, but he didn't think because of that he could be a great printer. So I think what I'm thinking is the city needs 10 interns to go out one each summer and have specific projects, and you might be amazing to see what could happen.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your comments. Other members of the public who wish to speak to this?
Hi there, I'm Allison Jensen.
Well, welcome.
I live on Eldridge. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, but I'm not speaking in that role right now. I'm just speaking as a person who lives in Roseville and I've been watching this climate equity project. I know Noel. I'm on a small group. It's not incorporated or anything, Resilient Roseville. And our goals are to help Roseville meet the requirements of the future, which means addressing climate change every day. So I think this is a great touchstone. The climate equity thing, you know, as we're talking today, oh, we're going to take out this sentence, do that. I'm an editor and writer by training. Yeah, we can take out this sentence, but we keep the sense of what we're trying to do. I think it's really admirable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? All right. If there's no one else, we'll go ahead and close the opportunity for public comment and thank people both for their participation this evening, but also for participation throughout the process. As was noted, we do have the advisory group or groups that are participating and certainly have been invaluable to this process. So we've got the requested action this evening, I believe, if I can find my notation here, is to receive the presentation and adopt the Climate Equity Action Plan, subject to any final non-substantive improvements that may still be made, including input this evening. Okay, moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Strawn is the maker of the motion.
I don't think anything further. Thank you so much for your work.
All right, Councilmember Groff is the seconder.
I'm going to reiterate, I look at this as a plan. I've been on the council almost 8 years now. Nothing goes forward without being touched again by this entire council. We're going to have further discussions over the years. Definitely next year, definitely the year after. Before 2050 comes, there will be many discussions about this plan. This plan will be changed many times as technology changes, as funding changes, as grants come in from different levels, from the federal government, from the state government. This is an intention that we have as a value for the city of Roseville and the residents here. We want to reduce these gas emissions so that we can improve our climate change. That's how I look at this, and that's why I'm supporting this fully.
Other discussion on the motion, Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, and I think everyone can get on the page about clean air and clean earth, and so I think we want to continue to remember that. I think that's not at all the issue, because I think it's important that we take care of our planet. But with clarification, so we talked about a couple of changes tonight. So we're voting on the final, but not necessarily the wording of this, correct? That you're going to incorporate some of the changes we talked about?
I think some of the things that have been brought up this evening, as well as through our
So I
conversations
just wanted to
here,
clarify
yeah.
that that's part of
Right.
the motion then?
Right, yes, it is.
Okay.
That's correct, as the maker and seconder, yeah. I thought I clarified
Indeed.
that.
Well, I just wanted to double check.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I like your point about thinking of this as a guide. I don't know if I would go as far as we call it a plan, but I think, the goal that we have for, 2036, that's just not that far away. And I think a plan just needs to be a little bit more specific, detailed, which I agree with Councilmember Groff that we'll get there. But, if I think about this as a guide, I'm okay with that. As far as all my concerns about cost and whatnot, we have incentive throughout this, but if this is actually going to really work and continue on well beyond 2036 all the way to 2050, it needs to be done in such a way that economically it makes sense. That'll make it the easiest to achieve this. It'll also be the best way for developers, residents, and others to actually implement these things. And so when thinking about it as in terms of dollars, that's my reasoning for that. It's, to ensure success of this, not just now, but in the future. And if we can make the dollar side of it work, then it just works so much easier than trying to constantly figure out how to source it and come up with those funds year after year.
Other discussion? And I did want to note, too, if I remember correctly in the plan, there is that plan impacts section which talks about something like 40% of the goal by 2036, if I'm not mistaken, either has already been achieved based on policies or already has been projected to be achieved by policies that are in place and or the business as usual. And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't misreading that or trying to sell things in an incorrect way. So, but I did want to point that out, that we have a lot of a tailwind behind us, if you will, at least especially for the 2036 goals. I don't think there's any question that we have a fair amount of work to do to get to the 2050 goal. But as has been referred to a number of times, this is a guide post, a roadmap, a plan, whatever metaphor you'd like to use. But the thing that goes with that is that you can never get to where you want to go if you don't point yourself in the right direction. And I think that is what we as an organization, as the city government for Roseville, have been missing. More broadly, as a strategic plan, which we took care of in our last couple of years with a lot of foundational input from the community, this builds on that and helps point us in the right direction, specifically in this area. And so I'm supportive of the motion.
May I make one comment before?
Certainly.
I just wanted to say that I remember when we had our first discussion about this plan, one thing I mentioned is that since we haven't had a plan, we've really been kind of picking and choosing projects opportunistically as they come up. And with this plan in place, we can really be very intentional and, more selective about the type of work we try to do and make sure that it's not economically feasible. It works with our city budget. And so we're not kind of grasping at shiny objects where we can really move forward with a lot of intention and, use our limited funding wisely. And so I think I'm really excited to have all of these different options of items we can explore and expand on and shift as needed. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. And with that, then we have the motion before us to accept and adopt the final climate equity action plan, as was noted, subject to some final modifications as based on the discussions this evening and prior to this evening. With that, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously. And once again, thanks to everyone. Now, in relation to sustainability and environmental impacts, we have a related topic, which is to consider the future of the Roseville Leaf Recycling Center. And as our Public Works Director, Jesse Freihammer, comes up to begin to be prepared for his presentation, I just note that this is an item that was before the council as well as the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission sort of late summer and fall. The council sort of delayed a decision at that point to provide an opportunity to get more information and another sort of season of operation under our belts and measure some impacts. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Freihammer to fill in the details that I have left out in that brief summary and bring the conversation back to the council for us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you mentioned, we did talk about this before, so I have a presentation. There's a lot of slides, but I'm going to kind of just highlight more what we've kind of updated or changed and do a little less focus on what we focused on last year, I guess. So background, as we mentioned, so we did bring this to council at the September 8th meeting last year. This was a proposal on staff after reviewing ways to save costs related to the city budget process. The main reasons at that time identified were it was a cost savings, it was a duplicative service to Ramsey County, and there was some of the existing site issues. This was referred to the Public Works Commission at the September 30th meeting. Received additional public comment. Then at the October 13th meeting, council postponed the decision to get more information. We did collect more information, presented that to the Public Works Commission at the June meeting, and they recommended closing the lease site on a 4-3 vote. And then obviously we're here tonight for the vote. So a little bit of background. The site was built around 1971. It was originally used for maintenance only, and then part of the leaf pickup program in the 1980s. It is supposed to be for residents only. It used to be staffed by police, but it no longer has been that for over 10 years, probably at least 15. And I just want to mention, so this site was created before Ramsey County did it. From what our records, talking to the county, it sounds like they've been in the yard waste business for just over 30 years. So this has been ongoing in Roseville for almost 50. Current operation, we are only a leaf site. We don't collect yard waste, so that's really the big differentiation. And then the yard gates are really open for vehicles in the spring and fall. There is open all year round. The one thing we offer that Ramsey County doesn't, we do deliver compost to residents for a fee. We did increase that this year from $50 to $75 to help recuperate a little more of the costs. But as you can see, we've only had 46 deliveries to date, which is the majority of them are in the spring, so it's not a super high service. Operation, we collect between 30 and 35,000 years annually. Historically, that was about 25,000 yards, but we consider the site maxed out at about 30. But we I'll get into it later, but we did collect about 35,000. And then we turned that into compost throughout the year with make about 17 rows or about 5,000 yards of compost that residents pick up pretty continuously throughout the year. So just some observations we made from the last fall. So we did a lot more documentation of just day-to-day activities. Did kind of a log as well as set cameras up a few specific weekends. So we opened the Leaf site on October 13th. The first couple weeks, it was very, very minimally used. We actually used that time to regrade the site and put a lot of actually effort into it because it was very hazardous to vehicles with the poor soils underneath. So it was the first time we'd done that in about 4 or 5 years. The week of November 4th through 18th, that was the peak season, judging by the amount of cars and the work we put into that. And then we did have to close the site on November 23rd, which was early for us. We usually try to close it the end of the day, Wednesday before Thanksgiving break. We actually had to close it Sunday night because of the capacity. So like I said, we think we're pretty confident we collected about 35,000 yards, which staff is very confident that's the most ever. And then just a couple of the observation from the cameras. So we did set up a camera to count, and then we just had staff just try to judge if there were contractors. Usually if it's a tip-up wagon, that's how we determine that. So as you can see, it picked up. We did have a peak day on a Friday. Or the peak weekend was the 13th through the 15th, and we had over 1,700 cars that week. About 42 were contractors. I will note we didn't really do a study during the weekday of vehicles. The site is used during the weekday as well. Obviously, the weekends are more peak when people have off. Contractors more likely did stuff on the weekdays, maybe a little bit on Saturday, but typically aren't on Sunday. General observations from the 25 collection. Highest use ever. The site use has continued to grow year after year. We did close it 3 days early because of that. We saw more activity on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which we were very confident is because Ramsey County is closed Tuesdays and Thursdays. So some of that's obviously Roseville residents, but we're also pretty confident some non-residents are doing that. More contractor use, very confident we had more contractors year after year. Some of that is just hearing directly from contractors. Oh yeah, I heard from my buddy, I can dump there. So very confident that use has increased. As I mentioned before, we just have a lot of site issues with that. The location isn't necessarily the greatest. Access isn't necessarily well designed with all the stacking on Dale Street. We do get a lot of legal dumping. Certainly the non-resident and contractor use, and then some odor and noise complaints. And then there's some pictures of kind of the historic issues we've had. And then just other opportunities that the site could be used for. As I mentioned last year, with Ramsey County no longer taking specifically wood material from cities, we used to be able to take it to them directly. We've incurred our costs go up because we now either have to chip basically on site because we don't have a place to store it, or pay to haul it away. So if we actually had a spot, if we could use part of this site, we could probably save some costs on our leaf or vegetation management. Certainly, we do a lot of chipping right now, but sometimes if you could have a spot to store it and chip it later, that makes it a little better. We don't have a lot of space in our current yard, but that would be one opportunity, especially if we had a large debris storm or something as well. It would give us more opportunity. Other uses, emergency operation and temporary uses for like water breaks. We do have one site, but it's no guarantee that we have it because it's a Ramsey County site. And then certainly we could use it for some minor staging. Other potential uses, it could be used for temporary storage during the Civic Campus project or expansion of the Nature Center. And then I just wanted to mention the organic dumpsters. With all these proposals, we would still propose keeping them on site and just moving them outside the gates, not proposing to move them or get rid of them at this time. And then just want to highlight, we did find there was a report done it is a dated report. I'll certainly acknowledge that, but there was a report back done in the 80s about the Nature Center. It had recommended closing the Leaf site with concerns of runoff and potential expansion for the Nature Center. It was more related to that. We were pretty confident we contained the runoff, so some of the concerns about that have already kind of been mitigated, or at least not as a big a concern. But certainly there is opportunities that site could be used at least for different uses related to the Nature Center. Cost of operation, this entire fund is basically funded out of the storm sewers fund, so all cost savings or cost increases would go against that fund. CIP costs, as we mentioned last year, our compost turner is definitely due for replacement. It's a 1997 that we bought, and we put a lot of money into it to maintain it, and we will have to continue to keep doing that. So there is funds in the 2027 CIP to replace that equipment, but certainly we want to make, if it makes the timing to just have this discussion. If we don't have to make that investment, we can save some money there. But in terms of equipment and fuel, we spend about 775 hours of equipment use on it. And that equates to about $61,000 of equipment use. And then we have about $8,700 in out-of-pocket fuel costs. And then staff, there's about 720 hours of staff, which is about 18 weeks for a staff person. And certainly if we close this site or change the operations at it, it would provide us to do other opportunities with that staff, either doing more, most likely doing more storm sewer maintenance work. Alternatives to the lease site, certainly it's a duplicative service to Ramsey County. That's the big key that we started last year when we looked at the budget. Ramsey County provides this as well as other yard waste sites to all residents in Ramsey County. Roseville's the only city in Ramsey County to have basically a duplicative service and have that additional option for leaves locally. Residents can also get compost at the site. The only service the Ramsey County does not offer is compost delivery. Their site is open year-round. They do have some modification hours. Unlike ours being open all the time with the walk-in gate, they do shut their doors, so it isn't as convenient in that sense. They're closed during peak season or the summer season. They're closed on holidays and every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then their hours are a little bit shorter. So there is not near as many hours, certainly, but that's also why they have some of the controls in place. And then certainly curbside pickup is an option for residents. All vendors in Roseville are required to offer that service. Certainly that is a pay-as-you-go service, so that is an additional cost to residents, but it is an option that's available. As I mentioned last year, proximity. So we do want to acknowledge certainly the Roseville site is the closest for about 76% of residents. So if the site is closed, residents for sure, if they're driving their leaves, are going to be impacted on that. But the distance isn't like astronomical. Your average trip would go from 1.33 miles to 2.79. Some residents already in Roseville, it's already closer to go to the Arden Hills site if you're on the north side of Roseville. So we did want to lay out a few new options. We've had some discussions with Ramsey County as well as just other agencies or other ideas other cities have done in the past. So option A we're proposing is basically just operate the site as we currently have. Staff would highly recommend against this option due to all the issues. If we didn't went with this option, nothing changes. It probably only gets worse. Option B is modify operations. Basically what that is limit hours, add staffing to the site and additional security, more or less operated how Ramsey County operates their sites. Option C is to collect leaves, but compost off-site. We'd also, similar to option B, limit hours, add staffing, additional security, but then we'd basically transfer leaves off-site for third-party composting. Option D is close the leaf site as last year, like similar to what last year we would recommend closure at the end of the 2026 leaf collection season. And then option E is to make a request to Ramsey County to operate the site. And I'll get into a little more details on each of them. Like I said, option A, no changes, kind of pros and cons, pretty self-explanatory. Residents can use it exactly how they did today. Cons, we still have a lot of the existing same site issues. So options B and C, there are similar in a lot of ways because we'd have to do some investments up front as well as continue investments in terms of temporary staffing. So security, basically we'd have to do closure of the gates, the walk-in gates, so we don't do that. So basically modifications to the site security so people can't get behind the fence so we can truly have a controlled site. And certainly add cameras for illegal dumping. So we anticipate that would be about a one-time cost of about $25,000 with some annual costs for camera maintenance, about $2,000. The big cost would be adding seasonal staff. This would really be to limit non-resident use, but also commercial vehicle use. Certainly the way the county does that works well. They do not allow dump trailers, or obviously if you're marked, they used to be, they made it very clear. It's just, they have a cut and dry rule. It eliminates all the problems. That's why we know they've come to us, because we don't have that, and the county knows that as well. When they really started enforcing it, that's when we saw it here, because contractors used to be able to get away with it a little bit. But it would also really help eliminate other illegal materials being dropped. If you go to the county site, they will check and say, hey, what are you bringing here? if we only collected leaves, it'd be, hey, oh, you got a load of brush, you can't drop that off here. So it controls a lot of things doing that, but it does cost money to have staff. So we would propose reducing the hours to the site when it's open. We would mimic Ramsey counties during the peak season, but we're not proposing having availability throughout the season. Since we're only leaves, most people tend to only do leaves in the fall, and then some people do leaf cleanup in the spring. We know some other people will do leaves but throughout the year, and that's why the walk-in gate's open, but it's not very high. It didn't seem very cost-effective to have staff monitor a site with very minimal usage because we're not collecting grass like the county does. And then overall, our costs we estimate would be about $32,000 for that temporary staff, and we kind of listed out kind of assumptions on the hours that we'd have. The cost per hour we did update that from the county. I think they pay their attendance like between $20 and $27, so that cost keeps going up to hire that staff. So option B, this is basically, like I said, operate it like Ramsey County, limit the hours during peak season, staffing of the site, additional security. This would involve having to replace the compost equipment and with the 2027 budget. Pros, residents can still drop leaves off, solves most of the contractor issues. Probably a little decrease in traffic because we have less contractors showing up to the site and maybe less non-residents. Obviously the cons, the site we still have some of the other site issues. There's increased costs and a little bit of reduced hours to residents. So option C is very similar to option B, other than we're not going to compost leaves on site. We're going to collect them in the fall, and then one time a year we'll either haul them away or hire a vendor to haul them away, and they'll compost off site. So the big difference there is we don't have to replace the compost equipment, and then staff frees up some time and availability of the site for basically the summer season. We're not sending a crew out there every 3 weeks to turn the leaves, move compost. Obviously, some of the biggest cons there is we know a lot of the residents love Roseville compost. That is no longer available, so that would go away. And then there is some cost savings, but there's not near as much cost savings as option B because there's more cost savings in option B, but we still do have to pay to haul it away instead of managing on site. And then there would be some increased truck hauling, but that would be probably like 1 or 2 days to get it out of there. So I'd say that's relatively not very high. It'd be a pretty small impact. So option D is close the site. Obviously, residents would then have to use Ramsey County for a free option or other alternative options. We wouldn't have to replace the compost equipment. We could get rid of that. Pros, it's the biggest cost savings. We don't have any cost increases related to that. Save a lot of staff time, which we could put to other use, particularly stormwater maintenance. It resolves all the site issues, and then certainly reduce vehicle traffic in that area. Obviously, the biggest con is there no leaf disposal or compost availability to Roseville residents within Roseville. They'd have to use a Ramsey County site, either in Arden Hills or Maplewood or St. Paul. So option E would be to request the county to manage the site. So we did meet with Ramsey County staff who manages their yard waste to get an idea of what how this could potentially work, or what they could offer, or what minimal we'd have to do. So they mentioned in order to get a final detailed version of if they could or couldn't do it, they've certainly been monitoring if we would close the site. They know if we close it, they will have to take up that slack. They currently manage, I can't remember if it's 9 or 10 sites, so certainly if we requested them to offer it, they'd have to evaluate, is it better for them to manage one more site, or do they increase their operations potentially at their other sites? So, but they did give us a few kind of minimums. They would operate it very similar to the other sites. They want to operate all their sites with the exact same hours. So we wouldn't be able to say, well, take over the Roseville site, but you can only operate on these certain hours. They want to operate exactly like that. Same thing. They would operate it similar to their other transfer type sites, smaller sites, where they would collect the leaves and then they would haul them away differently for composting. They would bring back compost to the residents. They try to determine how much they have from the compost they make at their large site. Once it's there, they use it, it's gone. They don't replace it continually like Roseville does. So it would operate a little differently. Certainly the hours would be, you wouldn't be able to pick it up outside the gate. It would all be inside the gate. But the county would basically run the site just like their other operations. So pros, obviously, it gives residents an option to run the site. I guess the big key is the county would not operate as a leaf site. They would operate it as a yard waste site. Not saying they would collect all yard leaf stuff, but they would collect leaves and grass. Grass being the big difference. Our site only operates really big for about 10 weeks a year. This would be all summer and fall if the county took it over. So there would obviously be a cost savings to the city. Staff would have extra, our staff time would be saved, so that would be a benefit to us. It would potentially have some availability to use that site because they won't need all the room for composting. They would just need a collection site. Cons, the biggest one, talked with community development staff. It is would be a zoning issue. The overall parcel is actually one giant parcel as part of the nature center, so it's zoned parks and open space. It's currently a pre-existing non-conforming use. But if the county's operations, based on the way it's described with leaf collection and then all the hauling they would do, they would probably have to haul at that site every 2 to 3 weeks. That would be considered a change in use. So that would have to go through a zoning a plan, which there's a process to do that, but there'd be a whole process to have to go through. The big cons would be increased vehicle traffic. It would be open to all Roseville. We wouldn't be able to restrict it to Roseville residents. It'd be all the county. So if you're a Shoreview resident, this is closer, you're going to come here. So we know we'd have increased use, and certainly the grass drop off would drive everyone's use up. Most likely, if you're driving your grass to Arden Hills right now, you're probably going to drive to the 76% that's closer. We'll bring it to Roseville. And then truck hauling, as I mentioned, the county closes their sites Tuesdays and Thursdays. They close them because that's the days they haul out of their sites. So it wouldn't be probably every Tuesday and Thursday, but it would probably be some sort of rotation. And then organics, I just wanted to mention, we're not proposing to eliminate this location as organics. We'd probably just move it outside the gate under any of the options. And then certainly that could change as the organics program within the county, hopefully their system goes online. We keep hearing it's going to be coming shortly. So anything we would do would be temporary, but we're not proposing to eliminate this as a current site. So phase out plans, and certainly this could be subject to change, but our proposal was if option B, we would put, which is just the modifications operated similar to Ramsey County, we would propose doing that, putting those restrictions on in the spring of 2027, give us time to hire staff and get stuff in place for that. So we would not do that this year. Option C, the no compost, we would put that in 2027, and then we would most likely not make compost from the 2026 leaves. We'd try to get that out and get that message out. Option D, if it was closed, we'd probably collect the materials and then compost this last year, and the compost would be basically we'd make compost in 27, and that would be the last year we'd make compost, but we would not collect leaves the following fall. And then option E, we'd have to certainly discuss with Ramsey County. I should mention if the way they currently have a similar agreement with Mounds View on one of theirs, that's like a joint powers agreement is how they operate on that. And most likely, they didn't really give us what their terms would be, but I'm assuming if they would operate all the costs associated with if they had to put security things. So most likely they'd probably have at least some minimal term in there because they're not going to want to put a bunch of money in if that agreement goes away real shortly. So there'd probably be at least some sort of minimal buy-in. So just kind of a little bit about equity. We did do an equity and inclusion toolkit. Certainly some of the notings where it'd be a slight increase burden for users since they have to travel further. Cost savings related to some of the changes on the site could see a reduction or at least lessen future rate on stormwater. And then reducing this cost does align with the strategic plan goal of ensuring resources meet operational needs. And then just to try to highlight all the options and give a little bit of a chart, since I like charts and I know some of you do as well, we did do a little bit of color coding just to highlight what maybe some of the pros and cons of one versus the other. So I won't go in detail, but green being obviously generally more positive to red being more negative, and we tried to look at it both from a city and a resident perspective on that. So I can certainly go into that more detail if council has questions. Otherwise, as I mentioned, the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission did recommend on a split vote to approve option D to close the leaf site at the end of the 2026 season. Staff's recommendation is the same, to approve closing of option D to close the site. And with that, we're looking for action from the council, but consider approving one of the options for the future use of the leaf site. I can answer any questions the council may have.
All right, thank you for the presentation, the information, and the work from last fall to now that was involved in getting us to this point. I did want to start the questions with just a couple of things, only because I think they may be helpful to the process if we have that clarification. So one of the things I had asked you offline was if we looked at the reduced operations, like in option B, for instance, and we still did the turning, did we need the full 500,000 to 900,000 turning equipment cost because we only have about 450 in our CIP plans? And I think your response was you thought that there would be potential for less expensive equipment.
Yeah, we're pretty confident if we went with added security, so we collect less leaves, we will collect more traditionally what our 25,000 is. We think we could figure out the site and work with the vendor to get more of a mid-grade option. So we think that would be between $300,000 and $500,000. So we do have in the 2027 budget that we did update the CIP. So I think there's like $450,000 in that CIP for that. So we don't think we're going to be that $900,000, which was one of the options, which is more for a site like what Ramsey County has or some of the other county agencies. We're certainly not a county level large site. We don't need that big a use. There's a lot of complications with our site, but we've talked with a couple other vendors, and they're very confident we could find some that would right size our site without having to spend close to $1 million.
If I remember from the fall, the close to $1 million was because there was the turning equipment, which was really more than we needed for our site. But then there was also the tractor that had to go with it because we don't have the equipment to pull it or whatever. The other thing is, if I understand the Ramsey County process correctly, all of their collected materials generally go to a centralized composting location. I think it's up in White Bear Township or something like that. And that's their trucking. And then what they have available at their sites for compost is then trucked back from there for those limited opportunities to...
Yeah, we did clarify that with them. So we did learn a little different than last year. So they use their big White Bear Lake site as... that's certainly their largest site. A lot of people collect, and that's probably more northern residents, and that site has all the uses. But all the compost they collect there, they compost there. The compost they collect there, that gets distributed out to their smaller sites. Mm-hmm. The smaller sites, like the one on Energy Park, or basically all their really small sites, they hire vendors to collect those, but those leaves are brought to their own internal sites. They do not bring them up to the Ramsey County.
Oh, to the vendors.
To the vendor site, they compost and they use what they want. Yes. Okay. So they're all still getting composted. It doesn't, that material does not come back. The only material that the county brings back is from their White Bear site. So that was a little nuance that we did learn from them. So if we turned it to the county, they have two vendors that they use. The county said most likely they would put this site under one of their two contracts, and then certainly they would haul it, but the compost would actually be coming from the White Bear Township site.
And then for our option C, if we're only at a transfer site, essentially, we'd be working with potentially one of those contractors or somebody else.
Correct. It would be very similar to take, exactly. We'd either work with, I mean, we'd probably, the county has two vendors. We would reach out to those two vendors, do an RFP to have them pay to haul away, and like I said, they would compost on their site. So,
and is there the potential that something could be brought back for Roseville residents?
Potentially, but that cost is going to drive your costs up because
there's trucking.
Then you got to truck back. So the county, I believe the county does their own hauling of the compost back to their sites. So I mean, it's certainly an option. It will add cost to bring compost back.
Okay. Yep. No, I wanted to understand that.
But yeah, I think my understanding is the county has so much of it at their White Bear site. They need to get rid of it, and certainly they know there's demand for people wanting it. That's why they do it. But I don't know exactly where their two vendors take their materials, so it could be cost prohibitive.
And then as far as, you said that this summer or sometime between last fall and now, we've had an opportunity to try to address some of the soil concerns and vehicles getting stuck.
Yeah, late last fall, after the leaf site opened, but before it got busy, we did do a lot of soil. We basically filled the puddles in, more or less.
So, I mean, is that really a long-term solution? Or is
that's a short term. It is. It was overdue for corrections. We had last done major work either in 2019 or 2020. So, I mean, it's something that has to happen every 5 years. But more or less, we had two staff pretty much work for a week and put a bunch of gravel in. So, but the material just pumps. So it's short of doing a major improvement. That's just the cost of operating that site.
Sure. And is that sort of, if we went forward, it would just be every so many years we're doing
correct.
The same thing?
We'd probably try to be more proactive to not let it get as bad as it did. But There's no way you're ever going to make that site perfect short of paving it. That would be very cost prohibitive for that site.
Is there, I mean, I know there's sometimes that, like, as part of building sites, they'll do what they call surcharging, where they kind of pile a bunch of heavy material, and theoretically that helps
could be. I
stabilize the
still think it
soil.
would be
Is that-
very cost
yeah.
prohibitive,
Well,
knowing
that's
the conditions underneath that.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Is
We used a bunch of, when the last upgrade was right after they did they milled and overlaid Dale Street, so we got millings. You would never know we ever used millings on that site.
It just
They're all
disappeared.
gone.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note. And then just in terms of the budget for the facility, I think the numbers in your presentation, I think added up to, I hadn't done the addition. It was like roughly 69,000 for equipment and fuel costs and 65,000 for personnel. So that's going to be.
Yeah, so
about
our estimate was like 120. So
Yeah.
I'll just note and then I know one of the bench handouts, it's more like 100,000. So the real difference there is in the budget part that doesn't show up is equipment costs. So anytime we use equipment, we charge an equivalent dollar amount to it to kind of show that cost, because it tries to account for some of that wear and tear on vehicles that you don't, if you didn't do it, you don't.
So it's an internal cost.
It's kind of an internal cost. So yes, it's not a true budgeted cost. So that's
I
why
gotcha.
the one slide we tried to show what was out of pocket or what's in the budget. So that's why there'll be a little bit of discrepancy, is we are trying to account for that equipment cost. We don't try to charge a huge rate on it, but we do try to account for long-term operation of that equipment, because the wear and tear makes it a lot less sellable, or you're gonna have to repair it 10 years from now a lot more.
So but it's all within the stormwater department,
correct.
basically, or the three departments that share equipment in a
Yep.
lot of cases. So I did note that the 2026 budget, at least in terms of that bench handout, was down fairly significantly from prior years, and it caught my attention. I'm not sure if there was an explanation you were prepared to provide for that, but I did note that, so that was interesting.
I circled that too.
Yeah, so in 2025 budget, the expenditures were about 152,000, and then for the 2026 budget, just for the stormwater leaf site operation page, the total budget expenditures were like 51,000, as far as what was budgeted under the city budget. So, like I said, I don't expect that you have to have an explanation this evening, especially since this was provided late today. But it was just interesting. I think that answered the questions. Oh, the only other question was, in terms of using the site for other purposes, what sort of like acreage or square footage is anticipated to be needed for things like the typical storage of wood debris from typical operations and/or sort of your water line breaks and things like that? Is it like 100% of the site? Is it a quarter of the
No,
site?
we would certainly never need the full site for any of those operations. Our general thought was, certainly if like the county took it over, or we turned into a leaf site, if we could just carve out like a third of the site for that use, was kind of our thought. And certainly there's more flexibility if you have more site, it just gives more room for operations, but we certainly don't need the whole site for like water breaks and whatnot. We're trying to, a lot of times now with our water breaks, we try to manage that in a lot shorter time frame. It's just, we do need a spot. We do have a spot right now, but if that spot goes away, we still need a spot.
Shell game, right?
But we don't try to let it accumulate like we maybe historically used to when we had a lot of room. But same thing, it's just more of a flexibility option. We certainly know the Civic Campus project will give us more yard space, but it's still not a ton of yard space compared to other agencies. And if you get those weird storms or just kind of odds and ends where you just need more land to put stuff, it just gives you more flexibility. So
Okay, and if we did option B, for instance, with the 27,000 cubic yards, we probably couldn't do that.
Correct. Option B, we're going to have to keep the site pretty much as is.
Okay. And just one more thing I just thought of related to that. Do we still have any access to any space at the Kent Street?
Yes, so we have an kind of very informal agreement, but they have more or less carved out a basically 100 by 100 foot space for us to put our water break spoils, which it's sizable, but we used to have probably like 4 acres that we used. So it's definitely smaller. Like I said, we manage it a little differently. It works. We're very grateful to have what we have. We were originally working with it. St. Paul Regional Water was also going to do that, but they were a little concerned with some of the restrictions, so they ended up doing their own site that they had. But we still do have 100 by 100, which works, but there's no guarantee if the county has a need for it in the future, that will go away.
It's the county's project.
It's the county's project, but
okay.
it's rent free to us, so it is a great site. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure. Okay. No, I appreciate that information. I think that was my questions as far as I had them. Other council questions, if there are any left? Councilmember Schroeder.
This has been quite the project. And actually, I had the same question of the mayor with the budget number, so that'd be great if we can eventually get that answer. That would be helpful. I have a few questions. In some of these, like option C, you're talking about matching the hours of Ramsey County. What's the basis for matching those hours and days?
So we think it'll be less confusing overall, and certainly if we operate on different hours, say we want to operate on, Monday or close it Monday and Wednesday, then we think we're going to get more traffic to come our way because they go to the county site, and that will cause issues. So it'd be nice to be more consistent. Certainly, we could set our own hours. It's our own site, but that was kind of our baseline. That works for the county. We could certainly reduce the hours even more to different hours. We thought potentially you could also maybe eliminate the spring collection. It's not near as busy. So I didn't really mention that in my presentation. So the general spring observations were it's used, but it's nothing like the fall. So there's nothing really, we don't have the contractor dumping in the spring. People just come and go and drop off leaves. So, but it's nothing like the fall because the people in the spring are the ones who have either didn't do their yard work in the fall, or they have so many leaves that fell in the spring, or they're cleaning out their garden beds or what accumulated around the house. So certainly the hours could be changed, but we were trying to mimic Ramsey County as much as possible because we think if we mimic Ramsey County, the site will generally collect less. If we open it up more,
I was thinking less, but that's
or less. Certainly the less we do, the less we'll collect. Residents might go more to Ramsey County. So, but that's why we just thought as a baseline we'd start with mimicking Ramsey County.
All right, and then I know years ago, I believe the Rice Street Community Gardens used to use the compost, and I think other community gardens use the compost too. Do you have an idea of?
So we
many
roughly
people it
make
is?
about 25 deliveries at no cost to those agencies for compost.
Okay.
So I don't know where, I confirmed that with the street superintendent because I was wondering if that question was asked. But yeah, so most of it is either to the Rice Street one or the Oasis. I don't know if there's the Oasis, the community gardens.
Park.
There. That's the majority of them. Every once in a while we'll do one to like the high school or something like that. But on average it's about 25 a year.
And we've been doing that for quite a few years. So
Yeah, I don't know when we started that, but
Right.
ever since I've been here, we've been doing
So
it.
so they're-
Actually, I believe I remember seeing an email today. Actually, I think the Rice Street one started in about 2015.
Okay.
So it's been at least 10 years since we.
So yeah, so that they would be affected
Yep.
if we didn't have compost, which I think is something to consider. And then if we did close it or use it for different use, how would we stop this illegal dumping and other stuff that people, you close it and they still dump stuff? So how do you control that?
So our biggest issue is we have a walking gate right now, and so you can basically pull anything in there. Certainly, we would propose, and the gate is set back right now, so you can have a little bit of staging to move in, which isn't really adequate staging, but it's a little bit of staging as well, so you can load up stuff. If you can move that gate all the way out, you basically only will have if we can put the gate at the property line, that will greatly reduce it because there's less of a cove to go hide in. It's still a somewhat busy road. I'm not saying it's going to eliminate it, but it will greatly reduce the chance. I mean, anytime you can look like you're loading compost, and then you could also be dropping out. I mean, you can be legitimately picking up compost, but at the same time, you dropped off a mattress.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's just I'm not going to say to eliminate it, but it's certainly lessen the likelihood.
So, okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Good. Other questions from council members? Councilmember Groff.
So on the hours open, what I've heard is that people want us open on Tuesday and Thursday because of the convenience. If the other sites are closed, they want to be able to drop off stuff. So I'm concerned about that. Also, if we have someone there at the gate to check, would they be able to like check spot IDs or something, or at least?
That was, so that's how the county traditionally has operated. So yes, we would require IDs. We would probably have it staffed with 2 people at a time. We know people are not going to be happy. They get rejected. They made their trip all the way here and, oh, you're a St. Paul resident? Nope, you're not allowed to dump here. Or, oh, you brought leaves, you can't dump here. So.
But then they'd learn.
But yes, that was,
'cause this
and
still
certainly
goes outside.
the first year would be the worst year. Have no doubt about that, because people would learn real quick. Oh, contractor, the first time he does it, they're not going to come back again theoretically. But yeah, it would, IDs would be the best way to track that. So the county, they've backed, I go to one of the county sites, they don't ID near as often as they used to, but they used to, the one I went to is right on the Anoka border, so they used to ID to make sure you were a Ramsey County resident, not a Anoka or
Right.
Washington County resident.
I go to the one in Arden Hills because that's more convenient to my house. And they check your ID the first time you go through, but then they recognize.
Yep.
They don't anymore.
But like I said, similar to how we'd operate, similar to how.
We gotta keep working.
Couldn't resist.
But yes, I think that was. Well, I just think that is an important point though, because this is a taxpayer-funded site, and I think if Roseville taxpayers are paying for it, we need to be.
Or a stormwater fee payer supported.
Yeah.
Councilmember Strawn.
I was wondering if we had considered, would there be any advantage to closing the facility in the spring, or potentially reducing the cubic yards to 20 or 25 in a year?
I mean, if we went with like option, B, where we mimic the hours, we could certainly, the hours is completely up for, I mean, that could be really changed or whatever. So yes, if we want to try to save more costs, you completely eliminate the spring, that could be an option where you only do a fall pickup. You will reduce the leaves some, but it's not, we don't collect, I don't know what our yardage we collect in the fall is, but it's, or the spring, but it's very small compared to, most of it is collected in the fall. Probably 90 to 95% is collected in the fall.
Would there be a way to, would there be a situation or something that if we were able to reduce it to like 20 to 25,000 cubic yards, would that be able to get us into a smaller machine? Would that be able to have less than 17 rows so we're not losing equipment in the mud?
We'd have to probably, to go really small, we'd have to probably cut the volume over half. I don't know how we would do that. I mean, I think if we put restrictions on, it kind of goes back to normal. Like I said, I think it'd be at the 25,000. I think so you could use the site for other options, or to go really, really small in equipment, you'd have to get the volume down to about 15,000 yards, which I just don't see that practical.
And have you noticed, I know there was some concern in the last few years about jumping worms and other things. Do you think that has contributed to the cut in the amount of compost deliveries you've seen, or?
That I don't know. I mean, it's compost, what is heated up a little bit, but that I don't know. I don't know if people wanted it less. Like I said, we've slowly increased the cost because our cost is not accounted for right now. So we've been trying to recuperate the cost because it's been way too good of a deal for way too many years. Let's put it that way.
And so currently the 46 paid deliveries are in addition to the
Correct.
the free
For only
deliveries.
46 people have paid for deliveries, and then, like I said, roughly 25 a year to.
And then you said if there was any left over at the end of the year, you're selling it. Who is your market for that? Or?
Usually, it's contractors or other compost people that just want to supplement their stuff. So, but usually we don't sell a lot of it. There's only been a couple of years we've had to sell bulk, but usually it's less than 1,000 yards.
Okay. I'm just surprised because it's pretty dirty.
Well, if a lot of those vendors will screen it before and then they'll mix it with their other stuff, but they're just looking for additional material. Depends upon the year. We've had local contractors who are doing it. They're just looking for a little bit to do something with. But yes, it's not going to be a certified MnDOT, so they can use it like on a MnDOT job or anywhere that's got any certification. But
Okay. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff in it. Lots of plastic and trash.
I did want to clarify a couple things. So deliveries, not a lot and down, but the resident pickup is probably the biggest.
Correct.
source of
The vast
use of the
majority of compost is done through resident pickup. There's no doubt about that. But the reason we've been open to deliver to obviously some of the local nonprofits is we do have some. We almost always have extra at the end of the year, and certainly our volume's gone up, and then certainly that benefits those community members.
Right. And just one last question on the $450,000 that's in the 27 CIP. Do we feel confident that we have those funds available in the fund because we've been saving up for 30 years or whatever?
Yeah,
since the last time
we
bought one?
have. I think I've been here for 11 years now. I think, and we've delayed the compost turner every year, and so it should be definitely in that fund. We have upped that cost a little bit, but yeah, that we've always pushed it out a couple more years, But I can assure
what
you,
the fund balance was.
there is a lot of there's significant needs for repairs too. We don't want to go any further on that one.
Got it. Yeah, let's see if I have the fund balance. I don't have that. Oh, nope, I don't really have that available. All right. If there's no further questions from the council, I do want to provide an opportunity for members of the public to speak to this or ask their own questions. And so maybe Mr. Freihammer, if you can relax off to the side here for a moment, we'll open it up for public comments and questions. And just note again for the benefit of folks, I think everybody's been here long enough to have heard this before who's still here, but we do have the 3-minute time limit per speaker, which I'll try to always enforce generously but gently. And then also, when you begin your remarks, if you could just state your name and your street or address for the record. And as this gentleman is doing, if you have a name that may not be obvious to spell, although I think that might not be the case here, we ask that you write it down on the clipboard just so we can have it spelled correctly in the official record. So welcome. Good to see you again.
Yes, you guys have a topic that gets me out of the garden in the summer, which is hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I spent my weekend and I harvested about 100 pints of delicious
If you
black
can state
raspberry.
your name for the record.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm Andy
Street.
Johnson. I live over by Acorn Park on Cutting Road C. And I harvested 100 pints of delicious black raspberries this very weekend, and partially helped along by the compost that I get from the city all the time. Not as much now. I think I'm kind of in a like every other year I get 6 yards of compost type situation. But one year I got like 40 yards of compost, and they just keep driving those trucks, and you can get a Bobcat, and you can move it around and do your whole yard. Super cheap. You could probably raise the cost on the delivery. It sounds like they got there. That doesn't sound unreasonable. So yeah, I mean, like, sort of a big battle with gardening, right, is I'm taking stuff out, I gotta put stuff back in, right? Like, that's the big sort of battle, is the taking out and the putting in, and y'all make it really easy for me. It's actually certainly my number 2 favorite thing about Roseville, but possibly even number 1. Parks, I only go to the one park quite a bit, but they are good parks. I like them. I go there a lot, but the compost is really, really good. So obviously, speaking in favor of the recycling center, option B sounds fine. I don't really feel bad about contractors not being able to go in. You could also charge them, but that sounds like a pain in the butt, so maybe you don't want to do it. And I think, like, maybe I didn't watch the previous video. I read the Roseville Reader article. I'm not that hard about the game, just somewhat about the game. And I feel like we're, like, not really appreciating just, like, how much value it really creates for people in the city. And so I pulled up the Menards website, and they said they make like 4,000 to 5,000 yards of compost, and Menards will sell me 0.75 cubic feet of compost for like $3. You can get the 11% discount or whatever, right? But long story short, Menards is going to charge you like $100 for a yard of compost. Maybe you can do, and that's not delivered. That's me picking it up. Maybe you can do better if you're buying in bulk. Maybe there's some landscaper where you could get, 6 yards cheaper than $100, but I don't, like, maybe $70 or something. None of that factoring in delivery, right? Now, if I'm getting it delivered, someone to drive a dump truck to my house, like, I've already got mine. I'm not going to get 40 yards of compost in a year. I'm going to keep getting 3 a year or something, so it's fine, but, like, it's pretty insane value. And I actually mathed it out for me, and I think you guys have saved me, like, $30,000 or $40,000 on compost, right? At whatever, call it $80 a yard. I've got probably roughly 100 yards in 8 years. And it just feels like in the presentation, we're not really appreciating the fact that you are making sort of black gold in large quantities that people are getting. And we're talking about how busy the place is, and people are showing up and loading up, and you're using 3,000 to 4,000 acres or yards of compost. It's just, you know, it really feels like an incredible benefit, right? Like if we're doing the $100 a thing, you know, it's $400,000 of compost a year. So I wanted to highlight that and sort of my own personal benefit with that and sort of imagining more people. I would say I've never brought a leaf. I don't know how to use a leaf rake. It's not really my thing. They just stay in the ground. But
You may want to try to wrap up at 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah, right on. Just to say, you know, I appreciate the service. I think you should keep doing it. I think option B works great. You know, that could stop dumping and all of that. So yeah, vote on hopefully keeping it open. Option B seems fine.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this?
Hey, Roger Hess again.
Welcome.
And let's see. So if you got rid of the program, would that be save enough money? You could lower the storm sewer rate? So you can think of that question. And then have you actually figured out what would need to be done to refurbish the current piece of equipment? I assume it's all mechanical, that it's not computer driven very much. So I would think every part, whether it's a gear or a chain or piece of sheet metal or whatever it might be, can be replaced somehow. So I would think you could refurbish it just like it was new. And they say that the current equipment doesn't work as well as what they have now. So I think it'd be better to fix that than to buy something new when it doesn't work as well. And it used to have that the city actually came to people's houses and picked up the leaves for free. And I would think at that time, everyone in our neighborhood had you guys pick up the leaves. So I would think they picked up more leaves back then than now. So I'm not quite sure why we're running out of space now, but we didn't run out of space when you guys went around everywhere and actually picked up the leaves. But anyway, and also I don't really ever see you guys advertising that you sell compost. I don't recall seeing on the website or in the newsletter that you guys sell it. So you probably would sell a lot more if you let people know you had that service. So anyway, I think for the little bit of money it costs and the large number of people that are using the service, I think you should keep the leaf site, even if you modify how it works. But I think it's a service that people really like. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this?
Hi,
Hello, welcome.
I'm Norma Jorgensen. I'm a 8-year resident of Roseville, moved into the new townhouses that are off of Dale Street. I'm on Lovell. We are really close to the leaf collection site, and we love it. Not just my husband and I with gardening, but the people in our townhouse development. We go there in the fall and drop off leaves, and we go and pick up wonderful compost to add to our gardens. I really think that we're making Roseville more beautiful by being able to drop off leaves there and collect the compost. When I go, I'm amazed at how many people are there, and we end up talking about gardening and talking about how wonderful Roseville is. So please don't close the collection site. You have several options that look really good. Option E, if we are able to work with Ramsey County and they adopt our site, that would be ideal. But otherwise, B or C. I liked the greenness in the chart that you had. C had a lot of green with the pros for keeping it. And when we're looking at the budget too, I'm wondering, all the contractors that come, would it be possible for us to charge them to drop off? You know, they've got their big trailers full of leaves. What if we said, okay, we're gonna charge you $50 per trailer? That might help a little bit with the budget and with being able to have enough money to refurbish the composting turning machine. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for your comments. Other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Everybody can have a chance.
My name is Cynthia Warzeka. I'm going to write my name for you.
I'm glad you didn't even have to have me prompt you. I'm not counting that against your time.
Okay, great. So my name's Cynthia Warzeka, 2700 Oxford Street North, and I've been a resident for about 10 years. And when I moved here and I saw that site, man, I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. I mean, that people would actually go there and dump off all their leaves, and I was very impressed by it. I only recently found out about the potential closure of the site from a person at the compost site. And I think that I'm pretty well informed, but I was like, whoa, wow, I didn't know anything about that. So I, before the meeting, went and read 70 pages of public comment. High-level content analysis shows that probably only 2 or 3 out of all the people who commented supported closing the site. So, I mean, there's vast support for keeping it. And I would just echo what some of the other folks are saying. How many people use that? I go there probably twice a week, and use it mostly for organic waste recycling. But when I go there, there are always either 2 or 3 people there shoveling compost. I mean, it's amazing. Last time I did go to the Public Works meeting on June 23rd. A young gentleman from Roseville High School talked about how they got a load of compost for their pollinator garden and how that was just fantastic and it is turning out great. And there are benefits that maybe we, on a personal level, we don't know the value of that. Mr. Johnson helped clarify that a little bit, just how valuable that compost is. And also, I don't know, I just think it would be a significant loss to our community to lose that site. And reading through those comments, I guess one of the things I would like to reiterate is one of the commenters said, the compost site is a place where residents gather as they recycle their kitchen waste and leaves. We greet each other as we go about our chores and efforts to beautify and maintain our properties. And I'm not sure about you, but I think that's the kind of community I want to live in, and I think that's pretty exciting. And that said, I want to thank you, and I just want to also say that I felt so passionate about this that I sat here for a long time to wait to comment, and I'm missing the World Cup game. So that's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to go see if I can catch the end and hope for the best.
Thank you for that sacrifice. Other members of the public who wish to speak? All right. We'll then close the opportunity for public comment. There were a couple of questions that came up, so I did want to double check those. So as to the impact on stormwater rates, my guess is that we're really sort of talking about shifting some resources around and that we wouldn't necessarily be making a notable change to the stormwater rates to the residents.
Yeah, I would anticipate if anything, it might prevent a future increase, but I can't imagine it's not a gigantic savings that we'd be able to do some significant thing, but certainly we'd work with the finance director to analyze that. But most likely would prevent maybe future rate increases.
Especially probably the biggest chunk of dollars associated with it is the capital cost for the Turner, and if we don't do the Turner anymore, we would probably use that money for stormwater projects in the community. Okay. Let's see. Charging the contractors, I think the challenge we have there is that if we charge one, we got to charge anybody who shows up, and then we run out of capacity on the site pretty quickly.
I would say it would make it capacity-wise would be an issue, and I think just managing that would cost a lot of money to manage a relatively small amount of transactions.
The billing and payment.
And then if we collect one, like you said, we collect all, and we will most likely run out of room. We'd have to really make sure our price point was correct.
Might be the most expensive collection charge out there. Yeah. I think those were the questions, unless council noted any others that needed to be addressed from resident comments.
I know there was some comment about the equipment, about repairs. I can assure you, we have spent $30,000 just in parts in the last 5 years to keep that thing running. The mechanics estimate we have to replace some major components like the drum and some bearings. That is at minimum of $40,000 repair, and then we know we have to re-sheet metal the entire skirt. So we're probably spending at least $70,000 if we have to do another major rehab. So it's served its life. We've gotten good value out of it. If we keep it, we most definitely need to replace the equipment. And eventually, with some younger mechanics, most likely in the future, we will also, some of that, need newer technology, I guess. It's gonna be harder to keep fixing something that's really old.
And just on the sort of mid-range numbers that you had talked about, 3 to 500,000, that is not inadequate equipment for the lower.
Yeah, we are
capacity
pretty
site that we're
confident, talking to vendors, that we can get equipment that could serve the site with $300,000 to $500,000 investment that would serve it. We might have to make some modifications on our end, but especially if we right size the site and we're not taking in 35,000 yards of compost, we're confident we can manage that.
Right, that's the questions I think that asked for follow-up. Council, we have received the information. We have the admittedly split vote recommendation from the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission. We've heard from members of the community. I think we should see if we can provide some direction on a way to go here, and I'll look maybe for a motion from the council. Councilmember Strawn.
Not sure it's a motion at this point. I guess I would really like harder numbers on where we're at. Following up on Councilmember Schroeder's suggestion, if we were to offer more limited hours, if we were to not operate in the spring, if we were to think about it so there's a way to have it open when 95% of the people are utilizing the space. I do have the concern about the about the equity issue with the Rice Street Gardens and such, and other nonprofits and such that are taking advantage of that. But also, I do have concern about duplicating services when it is eventually it's your tax dollars that are being used, and it might not come out. You may not get it back, but it's some other time when you're not paying as much, and so. Obviously, it's really important, but there are a lot of other ways that people could compost at home. We could encourage people we could have composter sales. We could have classes on how to compost. We could maybe find a way to partner with the haulers and see if they could offer some type of I don't know. I feel like I so appreciate the expansion of ideas to 5. And I hate to ask for more, but I feel like I still don't know that I am comfortable with it either closed or not closed. I feel like there needs to be something in the middle, and I don't know what it is. So I don't think I have a motion, but I'm not comfortable really with any of them exactly as listed.
If I may suggest, depending on the direction the council may want to go, that we choose a direction, option D or another option. And if it's another option, that we provide some direction to staff if we need more information or suggestions as looking at different hours or different plans or things like that to give us some further refinement of choices. If that's the direction the council wants to go, that may address Councilmember Strawn's concerns and questions.
I would make a motion to consider option B with modifications for 2027. And make a decision based on additional information before an additional purchase of the CIP.
I would second that motion.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff, basically to initiate consideration of option B, if I may paraphrase, and look at some alternatives. And I guess my suggestion would be that maybe the decision-making happens through the 2027 budget process, if that makes sense for the maker and seconder of the motion, so that we can consider some of those gives and takes in terms of options.
I appreciate that.
Seconder, okay with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Council understand the motion?
Can I get a point of clarification? What do we do? So we go on with that. What happens if said machine completely fails? Like, throws a piston through the rock, through the block?
I think my understanding is that option B includes a plan to buy new equipment in 2027 using CIP funds.
That's where I want to get clarification of.
That's my understanding. I think that's what staff's plan for option B would be.
Correct. I guess if, certainly if council goes with any option where we keep the compost operation, staff would most likely bring you guys a purchase order request in the over 10,000, probably in the next 2 months. So we can get that on order, so we'd have it for when we start doing compost in the spring. So yeah, we wouldn't want to delay that too long because we'd want to make sure we have that so we don't jeopardize our equipment. Because one of the issues we have is we can fix the equipment eventually, but if we're out of the equipment for 2 months, compost doesn't get turned and we can't make compost and then we're stuck with it. So that's another criticality aspect of the equipment. So.
Right. And what are we, if we're going with option B then, what is the subsequent decisions that we need to make in the future then?
Specific hours, I think.
Maybe closing in the spring.
Okay.
Potentially different operational model, yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
Right.
But I just want to know what the list is that we have to
Yeah.
decide on. Right?
I think if it's a foregone conclusion that we are purchasing the Turner as immediately, I think I'd more comfortable withdrawing my motion at the moment, just because I don't know that I'm ready to commit to that outlay.
Right, that sounds like you're withdrawing your motion then?
100%.
We have the possibility of somebody else making a motion, either similar to or the same as that?
I would move, I guess I would still move for B. I just thinking about you're hearing about the composting and how that brings the community together and the community gardens, and that this isn't just a place for people to drop stuff. It's actually it's a community thing, and you know, the more I hear people, the more I think about it. Because when I first started looking at this, I was trying to decide which way to go. I wasn't at a foregone conclusion, but I think it's, you know, hearing people that this is more valuable than, and I think people have said this in the past. You can't always run the city like a business. That you need to run it so the people that you have to do, you know, things for the community, and so it just seems that there's a lot of voices that would like to keep this open. And to me, it's like if we can modify it, keep the illegal dumping and keep the, you know, contractors out of there and make it into a manageable size. We have the money in the budget for the equipment, so that it's not like it's going to go up. And as he said, even if we didn't do this, they would spend it on other. So it's not like we're saving the money there. So where you're seeing is some staff time. So to me, it seems, I feel like it's a fairly important community amenity. So I think I'll move to go with option
I'll second
B.
it.
And just to be clear, are you renewing the original motion as clarified with the discussion about, you know, looking at options for timing and et cetera? As part of the budget decision-making process?
Yeah, you know, but I would change it where that if we're going to buy the equipment, I think we just need to commit. You know, and we can figure out how to modify the timing and the hours and all that as well of it. But I think what I'm saying is, you know, if we should still go ahead with the equipment, and then also then figure out how to modify the expense side, because I want to make sure people can still come and get compost and all that. And, you know, and a lot of people do that in the spring. So I want to make sure if we say close it in the spring, I don't want that to be that the gardeners can't get in and get compost.
Yeah, I think right now the plan would be is that the pickup can happen pretty much anytime.
Yeah, but I mean, so we can clarify that.
Yeah,
So
and I do have
I'll
clarify something on the purchase too.
Yeah, I'll just clarify that when the gates are closed right now, people get compost. The compost is outside the
Okay.
gate.
It's
So
in
I
a-
just
it's in a
That's-
bin.
that's
it's in the
the-
bin. So the difference would be the walking gate would be closed, so
Okay.
you could not go drop off leaves in the summer. The compost would still be outside.
Okay,
So
that's
we still need to
good.
make modifications, but the compost will be available outside. You
Okay,
can
good.
never go inside to get a. You theoretically could walk in to grab your compost and keep walking through the gate
Well,
if we were out.
because
but
I
that would be
wasn't
weird.
sure if you were going to modify the gate or something to change that. That's
Nope.
why I wanted to make sure that was important for that. So. Yeah.
And just to clarify, I know we've got the second to the motion, but to help clarify the motion, in terms of the process of ordering a new compost turner, can you talk about like timing of ability to cancel an order, or when we would need to get something on order, and how that all kind of works in the sense of if we need to pull back on a decision, when do we need to be able to do that?
Most likely, if you guys give direction to go with B, we will, in the next 2 months, we will solicit quotes from vendors, put together a proposal, put that on a council agenda for you guys. So most likely you guys wouldn't approve a purchase probably till end of August, early September.
we had time
At the
then.
earliest, you guys have time in that sense.
Okay.
But obviously, once we put the PO in, the PO is in. So
And then we could get more information for Councilmember Strawn, hopefully to get her a little more comfortable around things too then.
Well, and I think it would be nice as part of bringing any kind of purchase request to the council at that point is to have an understanding of what some of those
Yeah.
terms are
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
terms of when is our
Yep.
absolute, drop dead, we gotta,
Yep.
cancel without penalty, or there is a penalty after a certain time, or those sorts of things, so we can understand that as part of the bidding or quoting process as well.
We can always say, never mind at that
All
point.
right.
And we could certainly, once we reach out to vendors, I mean, we talked a little bit with them, but without knowing which direction, like what the lead time is. We know there's lead time on this, but it's not like it's a year lead time.
Hopefully.
It's probably like 4 to 6 months. So, that's why we're trying to shoot for a decision. Like I say, September, we put the order in, it's available for us in March type thing.
Right. So if I may attempt to clarify the motion. The motion is essentially the option B with the discussion about timing and open hours and things like that. Also authorizing initiating the process to go ahead with the capital purchase on the Turner, subject to the subsequent decisions that the council will have to make
Yes.
at those future dates.
Yes,
Have I got it?
you got it.
All right. Seconder is cool with that?
I'm cool with that.
All right. We've got our motion. Discussion on the motion. I know Councilmember Schroeder, as the maker of the motion, you kind of made your case as a part of that.
I did.
Okay. You certainly can have another bite at the apple if you wish. Councilmember Groff is the seconder.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm supporting this one is a couple things. It's going to be a secured site now, more or less, and we will not be it'll solve the problem of having commercial dumpers coming in there. It'll also be a service for Roseville residents, which I think is important. The other thing is, as Councilmember Schroeder said, from the discussion here, especially from Norma Jorgensen stating it's a community value, and also from other people, I shouldn't just say you, but it's a community value. And one of the things that people tell me in my day job about Roseville, the reasons they move here, is because we have things that other places do not have. We have snow plowing that gets done, and the alleys, or they have access to their homes, and they can get out in the morning for work, which doesn't happen in some other areas around here. So this is another amenity that we have here that no one else has. I mean, I know that no one in Ramsey County does this, another city, but maybe that's a good thing that we have something like that. And it's also a community builder for the Rice Street Gardens and the gardens that you're talking about. Those are things that are important values, in my opinion, in Roseville, and from what I hear from the residents. So that's why I'm supporting this.
Councilmember Strawn, did you want to make a clarification? or-
No, I had an additional question for Mr. Freihammer, if possible,
Sure.
about the commitment. So if we purchase this item, what do you see as like the time frame of like, does this mean we're committed for the next 20 years to having a leaf? Or do you see this as a resellable piece?
Yeah, you'd be able to sell it. I mean, you would lose value on the sale, but you'd be able to sell it. If you only did it in 5 years, want to get rid of the leaf site, it's certainly an option. You're just not going to you buy it for $500,000, you might only get $100,000 back or something.
Right. So it's a longer term commitment. I mean, we're
Yeah,
not
I
going to
mean,
want to
the-
sell it over in a year. We'll lose everything. We'll lose some.
If we got over 30 years out of our last one. I mean, it's a valuable piece of equipment. It's heavy equipment. It'll generally hold its value, but you're just not going to get as much on a resale as you would on a new model.
And as far as the pack, you said, do you feel like as long as we keep track, I know when you mentioned it originally was the amount of trucks and stuff that were getting stuck in the space, do you see that being somehow different with the way things are being proposed?
Certainly, if we manage it a little more, I mean, we more or less, we put about $20,000 worth of material in last year. If we spread that out and spend about $5,000 annually, we think we can keep the site up. And if we reduce contractors in there, that's less people in the site, especially with larger trucks and dump trailers. That will help. It's not going to solve it. I mean, the site will never be a great site because of the materials, but certainly if you keep putting money into it, it'll be adequate.
And you didn't think that the concerns that were brought up about the leaf site impacting the groundwater for the,
So years ago, there was improvements done, I don't know exactly when, before my time, to minimize what's going in there. We've worked with MPCA to do studies. It does not appear like we're adding excess nutrients to the site. So it's been at least minimally addressed, and we certainly keep an eye on that. We're not pushing the piles right up to the wetland. You know, back when it was operated in the 80s, people treated wetlands a lot differently. In fact, it was probably all filled wetland. There was probably minimal management. We just probably pushed to the wall. So the site is certainly managed a lot better than it was probably in 1980 when that report was created.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? All right, we've got, the only thing I was going to add, just to sort of complete the loop on the financial side of it. So our annual budget for the stormwater drainage fund altogether is about 3.8 million over the last couple of years. A big chunk of that is capital. So it's maybe more like $1 million in operating costs, more or less, each year. And so we're talking about something that is like 100,000 out of $1 million, so about 10% of the stormwater operational type budget. So it seems like good value for dollars in terms of what the benefit is for the community. And I think the improvements we're talking about in terms of staffing and security are going to help the operation overall. And if we're more proactive in terms of some of the maintenance on the site, this will be better. I think we're getting a more appropriately sized and costed turning equipment through the process of limiting that access to Roseville residents and other things along those lines. And so that's why I'm supportive of this. And I want to say that I appreciate all the work that has been done, especially by staff, but certainly the consideration by the Public Works, Environment, and Transportation Commission, because I know we're going against their recommendation here, and I know that's something we don't necessarily take lightly, because we value all the input from our citizen advisory commissions. And so still in the end, I think through this process, we've come to sort of, once again, that pretty darn good compromise solution that seems to work. And so I'm supportive of the motion. With that, we have the motion before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? That passes unanimously, and that action is directed. Thank you again to everyone. Council, we've got just a couple items. Do we want to take a break or proceed to the remainder of our business?
I think we can finish.
All right, proceed
Plow
it is. All right, that then brings us to consideration of a couple sets of council minutes. We have council minutes from our June 8th meeting and from our June 15th meeting. And those have been provided to the council. There's been feedback provided to staff, and those updates are incorporated in the drafts under our consideration this evening. Are there any other changes or corrections to those minutes or a motion to approve as presented?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, and that's both.
Yes.
Councilmember Groff moved, Councilmember Bauer seconded, approving both sets of minutes as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those minutes are both approved. That then brings us to consideration of our consent items. As noted before, we have 2 items on our consent agenda, although I see 3 there.
Yeah, I did clean that up. We only have 2. We only have 2.
We only have 2. Okay, good. Mr. Trudgeon, you will summarize whichever 2 are the 2 that are remaining.
It'll be A and C. My
right.
apologies. I didn't look at that close enough. So first item is to approve payments in the amount of $2,251,402.02. And the second item, listed as 10C, is to approve a contract to have 2 EMTs assigned to the Parkinson's Walk in Central Park on September 19th. And the Parkinson's Association will be paying for the cost for those 2 EMTs to be stationed there during that event. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved, second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder. A discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Those items are approved. That then brings us to our future agenda review first. Among the items in this agenda item, Mr. Trudgeon?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next council meeting is next Monday. Just a reminder, this is going to be focused around the 2027 budget. We'll start earlier. At 4 p.m., we'll be over at the fire station like we did in April, roughly budgeting about 3 hours or so, but that can go longer if needed or shorter as needed. And at the opportunity, we're going to take a look at what the department head budgets were submitted, And I just want to make sure it's very clear that I have not gone through there and started vetting through some of those asks. I did want to have the opportunity for department heads to talk about what their asks are, and certainly would love any input that you can give as part of the process. As you know, it's kind of an interactive process, so we're looking forward to that. So that's next Monday, the 13th. On the 20th, we do have an EDA meeting. We'll discuss the preliminary EDA budget. We'll be talking a little bit about the EDA budget in general on the 13th, but the 20th we'll kind of dive deeper into what those costs are. On that, we'll also provide an update on the emergency rental assistance program that we created a few months ago, and then also receive some recommendations about using the LAHA funds. And it's really just for discussion and consideration. So,
And those are the sales tax
Yeah,
funds
sorry.
from the state for housing, right?
Then also after that EDA meeting, we'll then have the city council meeting. We'll have a couple bigger items. One would be a joint meeting with the PWET Commission. We'll also receive a presentation of the Victoria Street Pathway Project from Ramsey County. And also we expect we'll have the results from our 2026 community survey, which will have a presentation and review of that. Just a note, in our August meetings, we have an August 10th meeting. We do have August 19th as a tentative date for any commission interviews that we would need to have. At this point, we don't have any vacancies, so most likely that won't happen, but we'll keep you informed. Then the 24th of August, we'll have a meeting. That's when I'll present my city manager recommended budget. That's the rest of the summer.
Wow.
Start of September.
Let's count September as part of the summer, too.
Maybe October.
Right. Whatever it takes. I did want to note, on the 20th, I think City Manager Trudgeon and I went to a meeting of all the communities that have been involved in that coalition of cities that was related to Operation Metro Surge and some of the legislative priorities and things like that. And there's been a proposal by the working group from that coalition to continue that in a limited form, and so I think a decision from the council will be needed to do that, and there's limited costs associated. But I think that's something Pat and I talked about bringing back on the 20th as well. It may have happened tonight, but it didn't, so the 20th will be that. Anything else from council members as far as either council member reports, announcements, communications, or future agenda items? Councilmember Strong.
I just wanted to thank all of the staff who worked so hard to make sure that Rose Fest was a success. I was at many events, not all, but parade. The weather was beautiful, and it was really lovely. The fireworks were just calm, and really appreciated the handicap parking in the Lexington side of Central Park. And the people who are utilizing it really appreciated it. So little things like that really made a big difference. There was a lot of extra bike racks, which I'm always complaining about. So it was really lovely.
Well, we'll try not to have as many next time.
Thank you.
If that's what
Council
you're
member, no, it was
Oh, the
great.
other way around.
It was great. No, but it was really lovely, and so thanks to all who worked so hard in so many capacities. And Wayne was there with his great tax.
The theme of the evening.
All right. Well, echoing all those thanks and the compliments again to Wayne on his hat. Any other council member initiated items or announcements, communications? All right. The only other item on our agenda this evening is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Schroeder to adjourn. There is no discussion on a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 8:37 p.m. Thanks, everyone.